Chapter 1461. Water was something that even top experts could not do anything to. They were powerless against it. If it was fire, they could try to extinguish it, but water, they could send it flying, but what fell down was still water. What could they do against such a huge flood? Even if the Phoenix Sovereign, who was known for his fire tribute techniques, or all the powerhouses of the Phoenix race, they couldn't evaporate all the water. It wasn't that the Fox Sovereign hadn't tried to divert the water, but the Fox race was at the border of the Demon race, and they were located downstream, so there was no way to divert the water. The flood continued to accumulate, and it became the most terrifying disaster in the world, unstoppable. To the Fox Sovereign, even if he had great cultivation, he could only wait passively for the water to subside. Other than that, there was nothing he could do. There are more and more refugees, and they are all gathering towards the Fox Sovereign city. What should we do? The Fox Sovereign city can't hold so many people. A great sage of the Fox race came over with a solemn expression. In fact, the Fox Sovereign city has already exceeded the limit of saturation. If more people come in, I'm afraid. The Fox Sovereign's expression was solemn. How is the movement towards the mountain? The mountaintop area is limited. How many can we move in such a short time? We will start from the middle of the mountain to open up a living area, and then transport people there. But only those with cultivation can survive there, and food is also a problem. Without a certain level of cultivation, it's hard to even breathe there, and it's not a long-term solution. What's more, the rain is still continuing, and the melting of the snow mountain is still worsening. I believe the water level will continue to rise, and the caves on the mountain are only 4,000 to 5,000 feet high, so it's hard to guarantee their safety. There's still room to maintain the current situation, but what I'm afraid of is the demon race in the sea, the cat ancestor said worriedly. If the demon race in the sea takes the opportunity to stir up trouble, that's the real disaster. I have to say, the Demon Sovereign really values our two races by any means necessary. They don't hesitate to drown this continent just to get rid of us. What a good method, what a good scheme. The Fox Sovereign said with a solemn expression, "No, you're wrong." The cat ancestor, "I'm wrong? What's wrong?" "You're wrong in overestimating our importance to the Demon Sovereign, or to the demon race. All of this didn't happen because of our rebellion. The most important reason is that this place is located at the foot of the Blood Soul Mountain. Even if the Fox clan knew their place, all of this would still happen. This water is not for the sake of drowning the Fox clan and Cat clan, but to attack the Blood Soul Mountain. I believe that the Demon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor have long decided on this decisive plan. They will use the boundless water to attack the Blood Soul Mountain and open up a path for the demon race to conquer the Xinhuang human race. On the other hand, they can also use the water to mobilize the sea demon race to join the battle, increasing their chances of victory. Finally, they will kill the Fox race who rebelled. Even if the Fox clan did not rebel, they would still have to sacrifice themselves for the demon clan's 1,000-year achievement of conquering the human clan. This is a three-way plan. It is truly remarkable. In other words, my Fox clan has long been included in the list of sacrifices. On the other hand, it was your Cat clan that was implicated in this flood. When you arrived here, you just happened to be caught up in this man-made disaster. The Fox Emperor's eyes flashed. I say, ever since my son's prophecy was spread, the Demon Emperor has been indifferent. Long Yuqian's indifference is one thing, but the Phoenix Emperor is also indifferent. So this is the truth. From the beginning, they never thought of letting the Fox clan continue to live. But when did all of this start to be set up? When did this plan start? Why didn't there be any traces of it before? The Fox Emperor searched through all his memories with all his might, but there was no relevant impression. How is it possible that no traces of such a huge plan have been leaked? The cat ancestor was already so shocked that he couldn't speak. The boundless water had completely destroyed this vast area? How many living beings had to be sacrificed for this? Although most of the land within hundreds of thousands of miles was the original territory of the Fox clan, it was not just the Fox clan. Would the Demon Sovereign commit such a heinous crime? The cat ancestor thought back to the Demon Emperor. Although he hated him to the core, he still felt that the Demon Emperor would not do something so demonic. Even if he was stubborn and arrogant, even if he was domineering and merciless, but this doesn't seem like the Demon Emperor's plan. It seems more like the Phoenix Emperor's plan. The cat ancestor mused. What do you mean by more like? This is the Phoenix Emperor's plan. The Fox Emperor snorted and said, Long Yuqian would never have thought of such a ruthless yet ingenious plan. Not to mention the others, only the Phoenix Emperor would have such a ruthless heart to achieve success at all costs. He mused and said, perhaps this plan is the backup strategy. However, Yun Yang's previous visit ruined the demon race's original plan. After all, this plan is too ruthless and extreme. Once it's used, it'll disappoint all the other races, so it can only be used as a backup. However, Yun Yang ruined the original plan and we openly declared our rebellion, giving the Demon Emperor and Phoenix Emperor enough reason to start the plan. Then this plan began. Let's not talk about the origin of this stupid plan now. The most important thing now is what we should do. The cat ancestor could not do anything even if he had the strength. Now that the situation had changed, he could not even find someone to fight to the death. Now that the flood was here, the experts of the demonic beast palace had long disappeared. They were the only ones left to defend the isolated city. It's not realistic to trap us to death. Even if the flood is difficult to solve, most of the ordinary foxes will die. No one can do anything about it. As for the other foxes, they have the space to survive. With the storage I've made, it can last for at least a year and a half. As for the future, us higher-ups will bring hundreds and thousands of spatial rings to rob. We'll be able to let our people live, the Fox Emperor said worriedly. The key is that since this plan has begun, the Phoenix Emperor will never allow us to linger here like this. There will definitely be follow-up actions. When the time is right, the final battle will be inevitable. It only depends on how early or late it is. The Fox Emperor walked slowly to the front hall and said, "Let's act according to the urgency of the matter. Clear out an area in the Imperial City for the exclusive use of the royals. Open up the rest and let our people live there to tide through the difficulties together." Yes. The cat ancestor followed beside him and said, "Fox, you should make the arrangements." "I know. I've already sent a message to third brother." The Fox Emperor said calmly, "Let him come and take you away. Cat, if you have any people you can't let go of, let him take them away as well. The two races have been wiped out, so there has to be a spark left." The Fox Emperor's body appeared to be in a rare state of melancholy. In the pouring rain, he said softly, "I was originally quite confident that if we were able to maneuver the slightest bit, we would at least be able to protect ourselves in this internal battle. But now, with the Phoenix Emperor's plan to flood the continent, we have already become internal threats that must be removed. There is no longer any room for us to turn back. This time we really have no way out. Once the army arrives, the two of us will definitely be the first targets." The cat ancestor was silent for a moment before he smiled and said, "If that's the case, I'm still stronger than you. I already have a bloodline with OL, third, so I have less to worry about. I don't have to worry about the bloodline of the cat clan being cut off. We've lived our whole lives, so we'll have to fight our whole lives. We'll die in battle in the end. We're already very satisfied that we didn't die in prison. We shouldn't force it." He even chuckled joyfully and said, "Fox, remember to prepare a few more female foxes for your son. Otherwise your race might still go extinct." The Fox Emperor laughed. "Do I need you to tell me that? If I don't even have such a plan, I wouldn't be a father." At this moment, a voice asked with a relaxed smile, "The army hasn't even reached the city yet. Why are you already making arrangements? Is the situation really that serious?" It was Yun Yang's voice. Before he spoke, the Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor did not notice when he had arrived with their cultivation base. Instead of being shocked, the Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor were overjoyed. Yun Yang's arrival was equivalent to bringing a ray of light to their predicament. They were not completely hopeless. Yun Yang was the spokesperson of miracles, whether it was the bound of universe's humans or the demon races. Whenever he stepped in, he would always turn the impossible into the possible. There had been too many examples before this. "Oh, third brother." Once Yun Yang appeared, he laughed. "Greetings, my two elder brothers. How have you been, my two elder brothers?" Then he said, "I have to make a grand introduction to you. These are your sisters-in-law. They're both my wives. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu rolled their eyes at him and bowed to the two kings. "Big brother, second brother." The Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor exchanged glances with each other, feeling even happier. Yun Yang was obviously treating them as sworn brothers by doing this. He had actually brought his wives over during such a critical moment. The two emperors chuckled happily and waved their hands, saying, "Sisters-in-law, quickly dispense with the formalities." "Aya?" The two martial emperors searched their bodies for a while before each of them took out two space rings. They passed them over and said, "This is a greeting gift from Big Brother. Recently, I really haven't had much money, so please don't mind it." Yun Yang chuckled. Both elder brothers are sovereigns of their respective races. How can they be petty? It's the right thing for both of you to accept it quickly. Don't reject it or else they'll take it back. The excuse is already there. Didn't you hear that we've been short on cash lately? *CKU. We're not as petty as you. The two emperors chided in unison. Oh, third, your cultivation base is improving really fast. The Fox Emperor's eyes glinted. As he stared at Yin Yang, he actually felt that he could no longer see through Yin Yang's cultivation base. It was no different from saying that Yin Yang's cultivation base had surpassed his. The Fox Emperor had never doubted that Yin Yang could surpass him, but the time was too short. It had only been slightly more than 2 years since they last parted. How could Yin Yang have advanced to the level of saint already? What's more, he was an upper-level saint that surpassed his realm. I believe that both of you should have heard of the prestigious Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection event in the Bound of Universe. I was just in time for it. Due to fate, I managed to ascend to the pinnacle of the saint realm. It's just a fluke, Yin Yang said with a smile. Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection? The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor exclaimed at the same time. They remembered that when they last met Yin Yang, he was only a supreme saint. It had only been slightly more than 2 years since then. Even though the Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection was renowned and was a grand event that the 3 heavenly palaces did not host to the public, how could a supreme saint cultivator soar to the pinnacle of saint by chance? Since the beginning of time, no one had ever been heard of to be this fast. Elder brothers, you're being too surprised. My improvement is due to fate. Yin Yang said, look at them closely. They haven't experienced the Supreme Heaven Pavilion's opportunity, but aren't they already upper-level saints? Comparisons are odious. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor turned to stare at the two ladies in disbelief, their gazes filled with inexplicable shock. When Yin Yang introduced the two ladies to the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor earlier, the two emperors had only caught a glimpse of them and were surprised by the ladies' beauty, but they did not delve into it. Now that they observed them closely, they realized that they could not see through the ladies' cultivation base as well. It could only mean that the two ladies' cultivation base was at least upper-level saints. Heroes come from the young indeed. God bless the human race. The two emperors were not the least bit discouraged. They had cultivated diligently for their entire lives and accumulated tens of thousands of years, but they were only at the pinnacle of intermediate saint. How old were Yin Yang and his two wives? How could they surpass them with just a little cultivation? Could it be that comparisons were odious? This was an extremely unpleasant feeling, wasn't it? That night, the Fox Palace held a sumptuous banquet to welcome Yin Yang's arrival. There were less than 10 participants, but the Fox Emperor, the Fox Empress, the Fox Crown Prince, the Cat Ancestor and his 3 concubines, as well as the 3 demigods of the Fox clan were all present. They were the strongest combat power of the Fox clan and the Cat clan, as well as the highest authority. The Cat, Tunten, and the Fox Empress were extremely affectionate towards Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, holding their hands and whispering to each other. Which one of these high-ranking female members of the demon clan was not smart? Naturally, they could tell that one of the wives of their husband's sworn brother was actually a virgin. Naturally, everyone was baffled by this. Yin Yang had addressed Ji Lingxi as his wife, and there was no hint of displeasure in it. When they met just now, she had also greeted him as a proper sister-in-law. This was proof that Ji Lingxi's heart was all for Yin Yang and could not be chased away. There was no estrangement between the two of them. In spite of this, she still maintained her womanhood. How could they not be surprised? Could Yin Yang be so composed? Logically, when a man and a woman reached this stage, it would not be the woman who was unwilling, but the man who had a problem. However, Yin Yang's other wife had already lost her virginity. Although it was not long ago, Yin Yang would not have any problems as a man. What was going on with Ji Lingxi then? They were all smart people. No matter how surprised the Fox Empress and the others were, they did not voice it out, nor would they show it on their faces. They did not know that it was not that Ji Lingxi was unwilling, nor was it that Yin Yang was unwilling, but there was a huge obstacle that they could not overcome. Feng Lingtian said, his teeth were yellow from smoking. He bought some foam toothpaste and brushed his teeth, and his mouth was full of blisters. Chapter 1462. There were not many people present, but the banquet was extremely sumptuous. The wine flowed like water as well. A few men drank while the women left early to find a place to chat. After a while, the martial saints of the Fox clan took their leave as well, leaving only the 3 brothers behind. Big brother, do you have any plans now that the situation has come to this? Yin Yang asked. I've always prided myself on being resourceful, but facing the current situation, I really don't have any ideas. The Fox Emperor frowned, his heart heavy. Big brother, we're brothers. What can't we say to each other? With your intelligence, how can you really not have an idea? I just don't want to be the demon race's eternal sinner. Even if the demons betray me, I won't betray them. Yun-Yang smiled and said. The Fox Emperor heaved a long sigh. Hearing that, the cat ancestor's eyes widened. Fox, you actually have a way to deal with the current situation? There is a way, indeed. But if I do that, the demon race will miss the only chance we have. We probably won't have any more chances to march into the bound of universe and conquer the human race. The Fox Emperor sighed and said, even if third brother is here, I'd say the same. The three of us are like-minded and have become brothers. However, humans and demons walk different paths after all. Our standpoints are different. Just like what third brother has said, even if demons betray me, I will not betray them. As a demon for a lifetime, one must have a bottom line. The cat ancestor rebuked him angrily, don't talk about righteousness with me. Just tell me what idea you have. It's already a matter of life and death for the two races, and you still have to worry about this and that. Since when is the rise and fall of the demon race something you need to worry about? This idea of mine is only limited to thinking about it. It might work in theory at most, but if it's really implemented, the success rate is less than 1 in 10,000. There must be super experts guarding that place now. With the Phoenix Emperor's intelligence, how can he not think of this? The Fox Emperor looked melancholy. The cat ancestor panicked. Can't you just say it? Don't beat around the bush. Now that the world is in turmoil, the entire territory of the Fox clan has turned into a body of water. They might be attacked by the experts of the sea race or water race at any time. They're not making a move now because they're waiting for the right time. Once the time is right, they'll surely stir up a storm and set off a monstrous wave that will charge towards the Blood Soul Mountain. At that time, it's still unknown whether the Blood Soul Mountain will be breached, but our two great clans will bear the brunt of it, and it'll be difficult for us to escape the calamity of annihilation. Even in the best situation, I'm afraid only 1 in 10,000 would be able to struggle and survive. Cat Ancestor's eyes were scarlet red. Our two great races, in addition to the other races that originally lived here, the total number of life forms is no less than 10 billion. That's tens of billions of lives we're talking about. Don't tell me you're going to remain indifferent? Most of them are your Fox clan's people. Fox Emperor murmured, now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. If we can't break through the Blood Soul Mountain in one fell swoop, the monster clan will have trillions of people perish. If there's no way to vent the entire monster realm, other than the water race and sea race forces, all the other races will face a calamity of annihilation. Cat Ancestor said stubbornly, this calamity was incited by them in the first place. What does it have to do with me whether they die or not? I just want to protect my people. You just need to tell me your method. Don't say any other nonsense. If I'm not wrong, Fox Emperor said solemnly, for such a long time, the majority of the Saint Venerable and above battle strength of the various races have not shown themselves. The battle strength participating in the Battle of the Blood Soul Mountain seems to be much more frequent than in the past, but it's just a smokescreen for the frequent rotation. Right now, the total number of people participating in the Battle of the Blood Soul Mountain is less than 1/10,000th of the entire Monster Clan's experts. Then where have the other experts gone? The answer is obvious. Other than those who are guarding the headquarters of the various races, there's only one place they've gone to. Do you know where it is? Fox Emperor suddenly threw out a question. Cat Ancestor felt that he was confused by Fox Emperor. How would I know? I'm the one asking you, why are you asking me instead? You should know. Fox Emperor said solemnly, as long as you think about it carefully, how could you not think of it? Why has there been torrential rain every single day this year? Why is the temperature so abnormal, rising by so much? Why is even the Blood Soul Mountain, a snow mountain that hasn't melted for millions of years, melting? All of this is a plan, all premeditated. Fox Emperor's eyes were half closed as he said, if I'm not wrong, the interior of the other mountain ranges of the Monster Clan that are connected to the Blood Soul Mountain have all changed. Now, I'm afraid that all the volcanoes in the Monster Realm have been shifted to the surroundings of the Blood Soul Mountain. If not for this, why would the climate change to such an extent? Cat Ancestor was dumbfounded, clearly unable to keep up with Fox Emperor's train of thought. I think that the key to this situation isn't just the second. If I'm not wrong, the mountain ranges on the other side of the sea are also shifting over here, from a quantitative change to a qualitative change, forcefully suppressing the space, causing the flow of the sea to gradually shift over here. Perhaps there is a third or fourth reason, but I can't guess more than that. Cat Ancestor's eyes widened, both his hands were trembling. With his level of cultivation, how could he not know that it wasn't too difficult for a Paragon-level cultivator to shift a mountain range? but even a peak paragon-level cultivator wouldn't be able to shift a very large mountain. But what if many paragons or even monarchs joined forces? The entire monster clan had hundreds of thousands of monarchs. What if there was even the help of half-sage powerhouses? To shift those mountain ranges that weren't reinforced by Saint Power was a huge project that required a lot of time and effort. It was difficult, but it wasn't impossible. They didn't do it before because no one had thought of it, and even if they had thought of it, no one had the authority to make such a big move. But if the Phoenix Emperor came up with this plan, then it would be a completely different matter. The Phoenix Emperor was the only monster below the Monster Emperor that had such authority and such boldness. Now that I think about it, the high-level monster cultivators belonging to the Phoenix clan have rarely appeared on the monster continent since 50 years ago. What did they go to do? The Fox Emperor said coldly, the Phoenix Emperor has never placed all his hopes on a single plan. No matter how perfect the plan is, the Phoenix Emperor has to hold back in case of unexpected changes. I can almost say with certainty that the Phoenix clan had already started this plan from 50 years ago, but they were moving on the other side of the sea. Other than the sea, it was a barren land where humans and animals couldn't survive, so we didn't notice them at all. In total, it took about 5,000 years. With all the experts of the Phoenix clan working together, how far could they shift that mountain range over here? Even if it's the most conservative guess, it must be tens of thousands of miles. Shifting these tens of thousands of miles of mountains over is enough to lock down the direction of the sea. At the same time, the snow mountains on the other side of the sea began to melt, and the snow water flowed into the sea. After that, the sea could only expand to the other side. If the surroundings are also undergoing similar shifts, it's obvious that the sea will only expand to our side, which is the direction of the Blood Soul Mountain. Although this is the stupidest method and consumes a lot of time and energy as long as we put in enough effort, it's the most effective method. Although we didn't notice it all these years, we know that the sea is gradually expanding year by year. Do you remember where the Wolf clan, which has lived in the vast expanse for more than 4,000 years, has moved to? Also, where was the original home of the White-tailed Tiger clan 3,500 years ago? Where have they moved to now? Also, these clans used to live well in their own territories. Every clan has lived in their original home for at least 1,000 years. Why would they move? It's because of the expansion of the sea, which caused the environment to change, and it's no longer what it used to be. Now we're following in the footsteps of those clans. We've become a swamp country. The water here must be connected to the sea. All they need is a suitable opportunity, a high tide, and the experts of the Sea Clan, and they'll be able to drown this place. From then on, this place will only be a part of the sea. The reason why they haven't done so yet is because they feel that the time isn't ripe. After all, if the water spreads to the foot of the Bloody Soul Mountain, the humans will definitely be alarmed. They want to gather more water, and then they'll be more confident. Or perhaps, the Phoenix Emperor and the others haven't prepared a certain crucial step. After all, such a huge move must be successful in one go, and the opportunity won't come again, the Fox Emperor said seriously. With my understanding of the Phoenix Emperor, it's fine if he doesn't make a move, but once he does, he must have full confidence that he'll use the huge move that's been going on for 5,000 years to shake the Bloody Soul Mountain. When that time comes, it'll be the chance for the entire demon race. All the sacrifices in this process will be worth it. On the contrary, if the attack fails, it'll be the starting point of the demon race's decline, and their destruction will be inevitable. The cat ancestor was dumbfounded. His eyes were wide open, so shocked that he did not know what to say. He could only feel that his mind was a mess. Yun Yang sat on the side, pouring himself a cup of wine, a faint smile hanging on the corners of his lips. The Fox Emperor's voice grew more sorrowful. Do you understand now? No matter how hard we plan now, everything will be in vain. When the time is right, countless volcanoes will erupt together, shaking the heaven and earth. Coupled with the violent earthquakes that will shake the earth's veins, and all the experts of the Sea Clan will act together to stir up the waves. Even if the waves are tens of thousands of feet high, piercing the sky and striking the earth, I won't be surprised. Once the movement is started, it won't stop, it'll only become more and more ferocious, one wave higher than the one before, until it breaks through the barrier. It'll be a flat plain for thousands of miles. As long as the Bloody Soul Mountain is breached, even the results of the war between the two races won't be important anymore, because the demon race will have too much hope of survival. Their territory is as vast as the bound of universe, they can just find a place to stay. The difference between mystical beasts and demonic beasts is huge. I believe that the human race won't pay too much attention to the demon race then. What they need to urgently solve is the massive flood. No matter what, they can buy a considerable amount of buffer time for the demon race. On the other hand, if the flood doesn't break through the Bloody Soul Mountain, the one who will suffer from the flood will be the entire demon race. Of all the demon race's citizens in the demon realm, 1 trillion lives. I'm afraid that the number of survivors won't be more than 100 million. With such a high death rate, isn't it no different from the annihilation of the demon race on land? As for the Sea clan who's currently in power, what will they do? How can any member of the demon race be willing to see such a situation? If the Phoenix Emperor doesn't have a certain level of confidence, why would he do this? The Fox Emperor smiled sadly. There's a way now, but it's only a temporary solution. For example, the two of us can bring our trusted experts and sneak over with a few people, right at the edge of the Fox clan's territory. We can move away the few mountains where the waterway flows to, or we can open a path, so that the water will no longer flow through the Fox clan's territory, but will instead leak elsewhere. This is the solution I'm talking about. But this solution is only theoretically feasible. If we can open up a gap over there, the Phoenix Emperor and the others can plug it up again. Also, once we make a move, we can only stay at those key points and defend the gap to ensure the results. But how can the Phoenix Emperor and the others sit back and watch their plan fail? The final battle of the demon race's internal strife will definitely erupt over there. With the demon race's current strength, it's easy for them to crush our two races' strength. So, even if we can temporarily succeed, we will still be killed over there in the end. Once we die, the gap will still be plugged up and the Fox clan will still be drowned by the sea. For the Bloody Soul Mountain, they might be able to delay a little, but the final result will still be the same. The Fox Emperor looked powerlessly at the cat ancestor and said, "This is the solution I'm talking about. Apart from this, there's no other solution. It's like drinking poison to quench thirst, it's nothing more than this." The cat ancestor frowned and thought for a long time, then lowered his head dejectedly. That's right, there really wasn't any other solution. This was water, a huge amount of water. If there wasn't a suitable method to clear the channels, the water would only gather more and more. The Fox Emperor smiled coldly and said in a low voice, "Cat, do you still remember that a long time ago our land demon race and the sea demon race often fought? Back then, in order to stop the expansion of the sea, we often went out to fight." "Of course I remember." The cat ancestor nodded. "At that time, it was practically a fight for every inch of land." The Fox Emperor said indifferently, "Until today, it has already been over 10,000 years since there was such a fight between land and sea. Wherever the sea expands, the land demon race will retreat to where there are no more conflicts. The sea demon race is getting stronger and stronger, and the unbridled expansion of the sea, isn't that what they once dreamed of? Or to the sea demon race, the sea drowning the entire bound of heaven-earth, that is what they hope to see the most. The sea demon race will not consider how the land demon race will survive. And the Phoenix Emperor's plan can be said to be in harmony with the sea demon race's upper echelons. They will only agree and definitely won't oppose it. But what if the water can't break through the Bloody Soul Mountain? Not just the ordinary demon race, even those great demons and great demons, as well as the upper echelons of the land demon race, will all perish in the hands of the sea demon race sooner or later. Because at that stage, the demon territory will already rarely have land, and everything will be turned into the sea. When the cat ancestor thought of that scene, he couldn't help but shudder. Chapter 1463. The Fox Emperor was not wrong at all. Even if one's cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of Saint Realm and was only one step away from entering the galaxy, one was still not a stellar cultivator. One could not leave. Even if one's cultivation base was exceedingly high, one could only survive in the tiny space at the top of the mountain, curled up and struggling at death's door. It was all ocean below. The sea race could exhaust one to death. Unless one surrendered to the human race and went to the Blood Soul Mountain, but could the human race accept the surrender of a high-level demon? If a demon expert like himself or the Fox Emperor were to go to the bound of universe, what kind of damage could he cause? It would be an unimaginably terrifying scene. Even if the human race gathered all of its experts, they might not be able to find and kill an emperor-level demon in the vast bound of universe. An existence at his level could already hide his aura perfectly. Even a pinnacle saint would not be able to find him when he came out. The human race would never allow such a threat to exist. If that's the case, we have nowhere to go. Aren't we doomed? Cat Ancestor asked blankly. Yes, we have nowhere to go. We're doomed. The Fox Emperor gave an affirmative answer without hesitation. Yunyang said from the side, "It's not that there's no turning back. Water has its limits. No matter how vast the water is, it still has its limits. When the snow on the other side melts, it might be able to invade many areas of the demonic realm, but it might not be able to take over the entire demonic realm's interior. Water might not only exist in the ocean. The water on the ground evaporates into vapor and rises to the sky, turning into rain and snow to descend upon the human realm. The cycle repeats itself. In other words, such water doesn't appear out of thin air. What the Phoenix Emperor has done so far is only compressing space and moving mountains and oceans away." Yunyang said, "From what I see, if the plan doesn't work, as long as the experts of the demonic race move together and move the mountains away, the water won't flow in reverse. Big Brother's plan to wipe out the entire demonic race isn't absolute." The Fox Emperor's eyes shone. "Yes, there's still this change." Cat Ancestor said listlessly, "Don't be too optimistic. The Phoenix clan has mobilized all the elite warriors of the clan. It has been 5,000 years. Even if all the best cultivators of the entire demon clan join hands and move the mountains back to their original positions, it will still take a long time. How many demons will die in this disaster? The most conservative and optimistic estimate is that tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of casualties are inevitable." Yunyang said, "The Phoenix Emperor's plan is indeed feasible after a detailed analysis. Even if it did not succeed, the demon clan would lose many demons in this operation, but most of them were ordinary demons. The remaining ones were all elites. The resources that were originally shared by hundreds of billions of people will be occupied by the remaining elites. The foundation of the demon clan may not be damaged much. Perhaps there is a chance that it will not be damaged but will increase. At the very least, the demon clan will retain the capital to stage a comeback. I have to admit that the Phoenix Emperor is truly a formidable character. You can attack if you want to advance or retreat if you want to. Every move you make is a foundation that has been developed for hundreds of thousands of years." The Fox Emperor said bitterly, "It's just that his heart is a little too vicious. It's still too early to talk about this. What we need to know most urgently is what the Phoenix Emperor's trump card is." Yunyang's face was dark as he said, "Why don't we move a few mountains first and test the Phoenix Emperor's confidence? As long as you guys move, I think the Phoenix Emperor will definitely do something to you guys." The two demon sovereigns were moved at the same time, hesitation creeping into their faces. Yunyang's gaze flickered as he said, "Elder brothers, do you wish for the Phoenix Emperor's plan to succeed? Or do you wish for it to fail?" The two demon race sovereigns wanted to say something but hesitated. Their expressions were extremely conflicted. They were enemies with the Dragon Sovereign and Phoenix Sovereign, but deep down they were still demons. The demon clan had sacrificed so much to carry out such a plan. If it succeeded, the Bound of Universe's doors would open and the millennia of domination would be within reach. To the entire demon clan, it would be a great opportunity that they would not encounter in hundreds of thousands of years. Strictly speaking, or perhaps it was the demon's innate nature, there should be hope for it to succeed. However, if this plan succeeded, it would mean that they would have to be buried along with it. It would not be just the two of them but the annihilation of two tribes. Thinking about it, they did not wish for this plan to succeed. Therefore, in their hearts, it could be said that they were extremely conflicted. They did not want the Phoenix Emperor to succeed, but they did not want the Phoenix Emperor to fail either. Yunyang's question had conflicted the two demon sovereigns to the point where they wanted to commit suicide. Seeing that the two sovereigns were silent, Yunyang could not help sighing. He understood the feelings of his two sworn brothers very well. It was difficult to satisfy both sides, and they could not advance or retreat, so he did not force them. "How about this? You don't have to do anything. Let me sneak over to take a look and act according to the situation?" Yunyang said, "I can't be at ease if I don't understand the Phoenix Emperor's final plan. After all, this is not only about the survival of the Fox clan and the Cat clan, but also the well-being of the Bound of Universe. If it's only volcanoes, earthquakes, and waves that can be imagined, it's useless to the Bloody Soul Mountain now. It's just a waste of effort." Yunyang frowned and said, "Still, I'm very interested to know what the Phoenix Emperor's trump card is." The Fox Emperor heaved a sigh of relief and said, "You go over alone. Be careful." "No, I'll bring your sister-in-law along. The three of us will go over." Yunyang smiled and said, "I'll go take a good look and see what exactly is going on." Watching Yunyang leave, the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor's expressions grew increasingly grim. Look, with Yunyang's current cultivation base level, How does he compare to the Phoenix Emperor and Dragon Emperor? The cat ancestor asked in a low voice. The Fox Emperor pondered. After a long time he said, "Usually when we travel outside we leave our spiritual essence in a secret place to cultivate. Whether it's our combat power or the level of our deific consciousness, it's only at the level of a 3rd or 4th grade Saint Emperor. Once fused and unleashed with full force, we can reach the level of an intermediate saint. Such a cultivation base is naturally inferior to Yin Yang's, even inferior to his 2 wives. However, both of our cultivation bases are more focused on arcane skills and ways to preserve our lives. Therefore we're only above average among the demon race's sovereigns. Perhaps we're in the upper echelon, but we're definitely not among the top few. Whether it's the Tiger Emperor, Rock Emperor, or Falcon Emperor, their extreme combat power is above ours. The strongest among them is still the Phoenix Emperor and the Dragon Emperor. As far as I know, the Dragon Emperor has always been cultivating the Great Separation technique. If I'm not wrong, he should have 5 clones by now. He's about to break through from the half-saint realm to the saint realm, and this was only limited to the time when he rescued you that day. Another 2 years have passed. I wonder if he has made another breakthrough. Whether it's the Phoenix Emperor's Nirvana art or the Dragon Emperor's Great Separation art, they're both the best cultivation methods in this world, rarely seen. The Foxy Emperor shook his head and said, I estimate that Yun Yang's current cultivation base can at least be ranked among the top 6 in the bound of universe, but he'll only be 6th. He's probably still not the Dragon Emperor or the Phoenix Emperor's opponent. If he meets the Dragon Emperor in his complete form, he can still fight, but if he meets the Phoenix Emperor at his limit, his life will still be in danger. He's definitely not his opponent. Then you. The cat ancestor frowned. What he meant was, then why do you approve of him taking the risk? There are too many examples that tell us that he's the child of miracles. Nothing is impossible for him. The Phoenix Emperor's plan is too vicious. If we don't figure out his trump card, both our races will be the first to bear the brunt and it'll be hard for us to escape. The human race will suffer as well. Therefore Yun Yang will definitely go this time. Even if we stop him, he'll still go. Even if he's unfortunately discovered by the Phoenix Emperor, with the combined combat power of Yun Yang's 2 confidants, even if he can't defeat the Phoenix Emperor, he can still retreat in one piece. This attempt is the only chance that I've found after much deliberation that can save us from this perilous situation. Therefore, not only can I not stop him, I have to facilitate it. This plan doesn't only concern the people of the Fox Clan and the Cat Clan, it concerns the destiny of the entire demon race. It's the lives of hundreds of billions of living beings. The Fox Emperor sighed into the sky. The Phoenix Emperor's plan is too vicious, too vicious. Even if he succeeds and invades the bound of universe, there will still be countless lives lost. How can the living be innocent? How can the living be innocent? I only hope that Yun Yang can succeed, or at least find some clues, even if the price is to delay the demon race's counterattack on the bound of universe indefinitely. The Fox Emperor's sigh sounded like he was about to cry blood. It was heart-wrenching. Yun Yang sped under the thick clouds, locking down the waters beneath him with his deific consciousness as he advanced. You're going in the wrong direction. Ji Lingxi reminded him, aren't we going inland to look for the Phoenix Emperor? Yun Yang replied, the demon realm is vast and we're not familiar with the place. We won't be able to find the Phoenix Emperor if we were to intentionally look for her. Why don't we go to the border and create some commotion? The Phoenix Emperor will naturally come to us. After sprinting for 1,000 miles, they could already see countless powerful marine creatures stirring up waves in the water. Giant fish that were thousands of feet long, pythons, squids, and all sorts of marine creatures could be seen everywhere. Along the way they saw many demons on land, crouching and trembling on the small islands that were exposed above the water's surface. Suddenly, a wave came and countless tentacles stretched out from the water's surface, sucking the demons into the depths of the water. Not even a ripple could be seen. Silence ensued. There were also many flying demons flying in panic in the air, but it was not safe either. From time to time, a giant fish would rise from the water surface and open its mouth, swallowing those flying demons into its stomach. The water was still growing. Moments ago, they discovered a small island that was dozens of miles in circumference above the surface of the water. It was densely packed with demonic beasts. However, a gust of wind blew, and countless underwater demonic beasts rushed out of the water with a loud boom. The waves parted and after a series of cries, the tens of thousands of demons on the island were all gone. Not a single one was left, not a trace of life could be seen. Only countless large fish and long snakes could be seen scuttling back and forth under the water's surface, fighting for food. A water arrow soared thousands of feet into the sky from afar and hit a flying rock. The rock shrieked and lost its balance, plummeting to the ground. It flapped its wings with all its might, trying to return to the sky, but a giant fish that was 10,000 feet long shot up from the water's surface, whipping the rock into the water's surface with its tail. When the big fish fell into the water splashed up like a small mountain, showing the momentum of the waves reaching the heavens. It was a spectacular sight. In spite of this, Yun Yang and the two ladies had seen similar situations many times before, so it was no longer a rare sight. That's horrible. The rock's cultivation base seemed to be at the level of a Saint King, but it fell in an instant. This. Ji Lingxi stared blankly. It's horrible, Shangguan Lingxiu could not stop sighing. As a military general, Shangguan Lingxiu was already a valiant warrior who oversaw life and death. She was even hostile to the demon race, but she could not help but lament at the sight of the flood and the marine race's massacre. The three of them had not been flying for long, but they had already seen hundreds of thousands of demons on land being dragged into the water by the marine race, reduced to food. Horrible? Not really, far from it. Yun Yang said coldly, if the Phoenix Sovereign's plan succeeds, then what you're seeing now will happen in the bound of universe. The ones wailing on these islands will be human citizens. Do you think the human Saint King cultivators will end up better than the rock Saint King in such a situation? Both Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu stared blankly, shuddering at the thought of this horrifying yet highly probable outcome. They were still shaken by the lingering fear in their hearts. Far in front of them, a white line was approaching them from afar. It was getting closer and closer. Yun Yang and the other two stared at it, only to see that it was a gigantic wave that was approaching them. The wave was moving faster and faster, with countless marine creatures leaping and jumping behind it. By the time it got closer, it was already thousands of feet high, and each wave was higher than the one before it, advancing towards them. The small islands that were originally floating on the surface of the water had all turned into reefs under the ravaging of the huge waves. It looks like the marine race is already pushing hard in this direction. Yin Yang sighed softly. I'm afraid the Phoenix Sovereign's plan isn't to conquer the bound of universe, but to destroy the world. The three of them did not linger, advancing towards the wave at full speed. Along the way, Xiaoqin tore through space 3 times before he finally saw his destination. On the other side of the vast water, there were many mountains standing majestically like dams. On top of each mountain, there was a demon expert standing with his arms behind his back. The wind howled. Yun Yang summoned the power of wind and cloud, whistling over. A tiger demon on top of the mountain lifted his head abruptly and let out a howl. The demon experts on the surrounding mountains howled in unison. Who is it? Yin Yang sneered. You're indeed from the demon race. You have the heart of a beast and the nature of a beast. Watching your own kin being mercilessly devoured by the marine race, yet you're actually unmoved. This heart of a demon. Feeding your own kin to the marine race with your own hands. How does it feel? Do you enjoy it? On top of the mountain, a hint of shame flashed across the face of a tiger demon whose fur was like gold. He then bellowed in rage, Human? Why are you here? Go. Yun Yang snorted coldly, the saber light in his hand flashing brilliantly. The dazzling saber light tore through thousands of feet of sky, splitting the thick layers of clouds. The first form of Destiny Blade, Merciless Saber and Merciless Dao, appeared once again. Chapter 1464. With a soft crack, the tiger demon that was the first to bear the brunt of the attack had its golden staff split into 2. Its body was torn apart in the air as if it had been hit by a massive explosion, dying without a complete corpse. Almost at the same time, a flash of green light flashed past. Emmy had retrieved the tiger demon's soul at once while the remaining Dantian was kept into his spatial ring with a wave of his hand. When the other 7 to 8 demons saw that the tiger demon had been annihilated, they roared in unison and pounced over without a care for their own safety. Yun Yang turned into a rainbow, enveloped in a magnificent saber light as he crashed into the demons and began the massacre. The saber light exploded in all directions, and the 8 holy monarch demonic beasts were sent flying in 8 different directions. Then they exploded and died just like the tiger demon. Blood rained down from the sky. Another green shadow flashed, and another 8 inner cores flashed through the air before disappearing. Destiny's first form, 1 strike and 2 strikes had killed 9 Saint Lords of the demon race. None of them survived. The other experts of the demon race who were watching from afar were frightened out of their wits when they saw the scene. They sprung up and fled, howling to warn the others as they fled. Yun Yang appeared in a flash and stood at the peak of the mountain, his gaze focused on the other side. On the other side of the mountain, it was a murky landscape, barren as far as the eye could see. Yun Yang could clearly feel the presence of an unimaginable restrictive force on the other side, isolating the mountain peak from the other side's spiritual chi. There was still life on this side, but the other side was filled with the air of death. Yun Yang snorted angrily and leaped into the air. His body turned into 100,000 feet tall giant as he stretched out his hand to grab the mountain peak. Channeling his unparalleled mystical chi, he forcefully seeped it into the mountain. With a loud boom, he uprooted the mountain that was thousands of feet tall like he was plucking garlic and flung it far away. With a loud boom, heaven and earth shook and the sun and moon lost their light. However, the seawater had also found another opening. Like a ferocious tiger released from its cage, it rushed out from the newly created opening with a loud boom. Swoosh, 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 countless experts of the Sea Clan leaped out of the turbulent seawater, shouting furiously, "Who is it? Who's causing trouble?" "Phoenix Emperor. Didn't you say that we're already allies? Why is there a gap here?" Yun Yang said coldly in midair, "Since we're allies, why do you want to harm the demon race's people on land?" He raised his voice and bellowed, "Back then we had an agreement to form an alliance, to be of the same breath and branches, to spread the traces of the demon race throughout the entire bound of universe. But now, the reality is that you people have been devouring the demon race's people on the land, using them as food. All of this is because of your unscrupulous and deranged actions. I'll crush all of you into pieces, never to be reincarnated." The seawater rippled, and a voice said with a hideous smile, "Open the sea, the waves will cover the world, the water will spread all over the mysterious yellow, the demon world will last for thousands of generations." The Sea Tribe has helped the Demon Tribe to pacify the mysterious yellow world and contributed greatly. Why is the Demon Tribe on the land not willing to pay such a small price? Thousands of black silhouettes, gigantic fishes, prawns and other marine creatures leaped out one after another, glaring at Yun Yang maliciously. Yun Yang was fearless as he howled, "What nonsense and sophistry! Do you think the Wolf Clan is a pushover?" Rays of light flashed, turning countless members of the Sea Tribe into corpses. Under the turbulent sea, streams of water flowed back and forth. "Inform the Emperor. There are demon experts causing trouble here. Send experts to suppress them quickly." Then many silhouettes of the Sea Tribe arrived one after another, attacking the giant wolf that Yun Yang had transformed into. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu did not join the battle, devoting themselves to either destroying or moving the mountains that were blocking the seawater. With the two ladies' current cultivation base and abilities, moving mountains and filling the sea was a piece of cake. However, a few mountains were no longer in their original positions, and the amount of water leaking out was much greater than before. As for the giant wolf that Yun Yang had transformed into, he flew in the sky above the sea, unstoppable. None of the marine creatures that had charged out of the water were mercilessly killed by him. Indeed, all the marine creatures that had charged out of the water were either dead or injured. None of them were injured enough to survive and return alive. Despicable Wolf Clan, how ambitious of them. A voice bellowed, "Is that the Wolf Emperor up there personally?" The one-sided slaughter caused the Sea Clan to be shocked, and throughout the entire Wolf Clan, there were only a few who possessed such a cultivation. Moreover, every single one of them was a member of the upper echelons of the clan. Moreover, from the analysis of the words from before, this person was most likely the Lang Huang himself. Yun Yang chuckled coldly. "The original intention of our cooperation is to benefit both parties, to take what we need. You have devoured my people unscrupulously, so you shall bear my wrath." Without further ado, he continued to attack. His movements were even faster, like the wind and lightning, as if he was flying. The silhouette of the wolf swept past. Although there were countless saber glints, sword shadows, spears, and rain, the shadows of various weapons intertwined in the air, there were only countless corpses of the Sea Tribe that floated on the surface of the water. Seeing that the situation was getting worse and worse, the Sea Tribe was naturally enraged. More and more experts of the Sea Tribe rushed out of the water to protest. The alliance was initiated by the Phoenix Sovereign of the demon race. Both sides have only just reached an agreement. Is the Wolf Emperor trying to tear up the agreement by slaughtering so recklessly? Yun Yang turned a deaf ear to them and did not reply. His attacks only grew fiercer, killing those that came out. He was ruthless and merciless. Gradually, the killing of the sea demons became secondary. The method of stripping the inner core that was hidden underwater was revealed, no longer concealed. He skinned, broke the bones and cleaned up the flesh. He did not even let go of the fishtails that did not have any. The demon race knew that the fishtail was not a good thing. There were too many small thorns almost similar to chicken ribs. It would be a pity to discard it if it had no flesh. However, in the Bound of Universe's human cookbooks, it had another name of leeching. It was probably because it was the source of the fish's energy. Its meat was the smoothest and most tender. As long as the small thorns were removed, it would become an excellent ingredient. This was what little fatty Chen Duo had shared with Yun Yang. When the sea race saw this scene, they were all enraged and rushed out one after another. Yun Yang held the invisible saber in his hand, still in the form of a giant wolf, charging back and forth among the sea tribe. With a casual swing of his saber, at least 5 to 6 members of the sea tribe lost their lives. His saber was swift and merciless. Blood rained and dyed the sea red. Countless heads of the sea tribe flew into the sky due to the decapitation of their bodies. It was a delightful killing. The sea tribe was enraged. This wolf demon was simply unreasonable. The collaboration between our two races was suggested by your higher-ups. It could be said that you have a favor to ask of the sea tribe. Of course, we should be allowed to take advantage of it. Now you're killing us here and thwarting the grand plan. Damn you. What's more, you're killing everything, yet you want to take their internal cores, skin them and scrape their bones. You don't even let go of the fishtails that no one wants. Isn't this too immoral? If it was only eating, the sea tribe might have believed that their demons had gone overboard and devoured too many demons from the land, causing the other party to retaliate in anger. However, the 2 female wolf demons that were with the giant wolf were actually moving the mountains continuously and efficiently. This was a huge problem. The giant wolf demon had already displayed an extremely terrifying cultivation and strength, but the strength of the 2 female demon wolves was not the slightest bit inferior. Moving and even destroying the mountain was as easy and effortless to them. Now, a huge gap of tens of thousands of feet had been formed, and more water was seeping out through the gap. The originally good situation had been greatly destroyed. Although the sea demons intended to stop them, the giant wolf demon in front of them was blocking the way alone. No matter how many sea demons there were, they could not rush over and stop the 2 female wolf demons from moving the mountains. Watching the mountains that were originally guiding the flow of the waterway being moved one by one, the water that they had painstakingly gathered pouring out like a river towards the netherworld of death, the sea tribe was driven mad. As time passed, more and more experts of the sea tribe rushed over from afar. Before they could gain a stable footing, they charged into the battlefield to snipe the giant wolf. It was a pity that they were not strong enough to stop the wolf. Soon they were turned into lumps of flesh and blood that fell into the water and flowed out of the gap. Boundless spiritual energy, countless internal cores, and the flesh and blood of the sea tribe had all become Yun Yang's spoils of war. However, as more and more members of the sea tribe rushed over from afar, the ocean within a 1,000-mile radius was filled with them. Gradually, experts at the level of Saint Venerables and Holy Monarchs appeared on the sea tribe's side. All sorts of attacks rained down on Yun Yang, like a giant wave that was about to devour the heavens and counterattack. If Yun Yang's cultivation base was only at the beginner level of a saint, he would be able to hold on, but it was impossible for him to continue his rampage. As the saying went, ants could bite an elephant to death when there were enough of them. Among the attacking sea tribe, there were species like the golden fish king that Yun Yang had encountered the other day. The roars they released were aimed directly at the target's soul, and they attacked as a group. Their power was not to be underestimated. However, Yun Yang's current cultivation base was almost unparalleled in the world. His deific consciousness was especially strong, and he was no longer afraid of any deific consciousness attack in this world. Although the sea tribe had many members and their attack patterns were complicated, they were still physical bodies after all. Attacks on deific consciousness were completely useless before Yun Yang's absolute strength. Yun Yang brandished the concealed divine edge to his heart's content. One sweep and another 100,000 feet. He moved and returned like a shooting star, going back and forth. Wherever he passed, blood sprayed in droves, like a bridge of crimson rainbows, drawing a ghastly arc in the air. Coming and going back, there were at least thousands of strange heads of the Sea Clan that flew up, along with thousands of inner cores. However, Yun Yang did not have to do anything about it, as Emi would do its best to collect all of them. As the massacre continued, countless invisible and intangible karmic chi melted into Yun Yang's body like moths to a flame, allowing his endless divine art, which had been stagnant recently, to improve bit by bit. Suddenly the sea in the distance parted. A tentacle that was tens of thousands of feet long soared into the sky like a bolt of lightning, charging towards where Yun-Yang was. However, before it could get close, the saber light flashed again and the giant tentacle was split into two. With a roar, a humongous octopus burst out of the water. The length of the tentacle was almost 100,000 feet long. It was a gigantic sea demon that Yun-Yang had never seen before. Judging by its size, it was comparable to a mountain range. Leaping into the air, the octopus asked sternly, "Which emperor of the demon race is it in front of us? Are you trying to obstruct the cooperation between the two races by acting so recklessly?" Without a shred of doubt, the sea tribe was convinced that the fellow blocking their way must be an emperor. Perhaps it was the wolf emperor himself. If he was not an emperor, how could he have such a strong combat power? The giant octopus hovered in the air, its massive body almost turning the entire sky black. Yun-Yang raised his head and hollered, "The premise of the cooperation between the two races is mutual benefit. Is there any written permission for you to slaughter my people? You should have considered the possibility of being slaughtered by my race when you treated my people as food. What kind of cooperation are you talking about now? How laughable and shameful." The giant octopus sneered, "My race devours all obstacles. This is the basis of cooperation that was agreed upon at the beginning of the cooperation. You wolf demon, are you trying to rebel by ruining the cooperation between both parties?" Yun-Yang hollered, "The sea tribe treats my people as food and has forced us into a dead end. So what if I rebel when I have no way out?" Raising his saber, the octopus' injuries worsened. Seeing this, the giant octopus was furious. It opened its mouth and sprayed ink everywhere. Immediately, the sky within 1,000 miles was dyed black. The stinky black gas was still there, spreading like dark clouds. For a moment, it was hard to see and one couldn't even see their own fingers. Many of the members of the sea race who didn't manage to hide in the water in time let out miserable screams. Strange pustules appeared all over their bodies, and when the pustules burst, they all died a violent death. And the countless members of the sea race who died all turned into black smoke that didn't dissipate for a long time, matching the color of the sky. The inky black gas was indeed domineering. Not only did countless sea demons die when they came into contact with it, even their internal cores were melted. It was enough to show the ferocity of its toxicity. It was appalling and intimidating. The octopus was hidden in the thick black air, its countless tentacles wrapping themselves around Yun-Yang in a violent yet strangely silent manner. Yun-Yang howled, What is this?" However, his voice was no longer as angry as before. It was tinged with fear as if he had been poisoned. The octopus guffawed. "Die. Damn you wolf demon. Die for the countless sea tribe's sons." The tentacles wrapped around Yun-Yang without any reservations, intent on killing him without holding back. However, amidst the deadly darkness, the saber light shone like a blazing sun, illuminating the world. The giant octopus exclaimed, "You!" Scraping sounds could be heard continuously, like a blunt knife cutting through cowhide. The giant octopus's cries were earth-shattering, but they only lasted for a moment before silence ensued. The sound of heavy objects falling could be heard coming from the sea below. It was the sound of the giant octopus's body being chopped into pieces by Yun-Yang's saber. The mighty giant octopus demon had been annihilated just like that. It had perished. Chapter 1465. The black cloud created by the giant octopus was clearly still spreading, still extending, and its lethality had not decreased at all. However, it had already turned into countless pieces of minced meat. Yun-Yang picked a few pieces in the air where the meat was juicier and kept them in his pouch. This was an excellent ingredient. Thanks to Little Fatty's teachings, Yun-Yang had recently become more interested in delicacies. The saint that Yun-Yang had dismembered was actually only a beginner-level demonic beast. Its entire body could be said to be a top-notch treasure. Even a piece of its skin was filled with spiritual qi and greatly beneficial to one's cultivation base. However, Yun-Yang guessed that something better would come soon, so he kept a few of the best parts. Although Yun-Yang had dismembered tens of thousands of sea monsters previously, he had only chosen relatively rare parts. Other than that, he did not even touch the flesh and bones of the Supreme Saint-level sea monsters. Now that his status had risen, he had to pay attention to his basic necessities. Fish tails, for example, were the best delicacies on the dining table as long as they were properly prepared. With a wave of Yun-Yang's hand, a strong gust of wind blew over and blew away the dark clouds. The sky was clear once more without a cloud in sight. As the inky black gas dissipated, waves surged again on the surface of the sea, but more sea demons swarmed over. At this time, the ones with the big heads were mini whale warriors in human form. Their bodies were abnormally huge, and each of them was no smaller than the giant octopus from before. All of them held shining three-pronged pitchforks in their hands and came in a line. In the middle were walruses, seals, sea lions. There were all kinds of strange creatures of all shapes and sizes, and they gathered together. A moment later, a single-horned flood dragon emerged from the crowd and somersaulted in the water, turning into a middle-aged man wearing a crown and a royal robe. He walked out with his hands behind his back and stared at Yun-Yang for a moment before calling out loudly, "Wolf demon, come down." The voice sounded authoritative, but the condescending attitude was not concealed at all. "Who are you? How dare you shout at me like this?" Yun-Yang asked in a low voice. "I am His Majesty the Sea Emperor's Left General, Jiao San." The single-horned flood dragon said in a dignified manner. "You demon wolf, what do you want from me?" Yun-Yang picked his ear. "You're not a human pedant. Why are you pretending to be a cultured person and putting on such a scholarly act? You're a tiger but you're a dog instead. Give me a straightforward answer if you're going to beat me up. If you're going to beat me up, come up here and accept your death." A cold smile appeared on Jiao San's face. "I originally didn't want to lose a great general under the Siren Emperor and wanted to give you a chance to live. However, since you are so stubborn," with a wave of his hand he commanded, "kill him." Dozens of whale warriors soared into the sky at the same time. They were like dozens of mountains pressing down on him at the same time. Yun-Yang sighed softly. The whale warriors attacking in their human forms were nothing to Yun-Yang. "If all of you revert to your true forms, perhaps I'll look even more spectacular." As the saber glinted, the whale warriors returned to their true forms. They turned into their true forms and floated on the surface of the sea. Other than their inner cores, which Emmy had taken away, Yun-Yang was not interested in the rest of them. According to Qian Duo, the whale's body was too fat, making it difficult to cook delicacies. It was most suitable for people who had not tasted meat for a long time. Watching the dozens of whale warriors perish, dismembered, Jiao San's gaze turned serious. A saint's cultivation base? Yun-Yang did not give Jiao San any time to speak. He rushed to him like a flash of lightning. Yun-Yang's movements were too fast for Jiao San to react at all. Yun-Yang grabbed him by the neck and lifted him into the air. General Jiao San, who had been arrogant and haughty just now, was now being lifted by the neck by Yun-Yang like a dead snake. Yun-Yang exerted force and Jiao San's bones shifted. His entire body went limp and he reverted to his true form with a burp from his neck. However, he did not look like a flood dragon at all. He looked more like a dead snake and begged, "Spare me, my king." It was a pity that he only managed to utter the first few words before Yun-Yang knocked him out with a punch. Swoosh, 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 Yun-Yang pulled out a few dragon tendons from his body. All the sea demons who witnessed this scene were dumbfounded. Lord Jiao San, he was subdued and his dragon tendons were pulled out. Oh my god. Unfortunately, it was not the climax yet, as the show was yet to come. Yun-Yang seemed to weigh it with his hand and immediately slit its throat, ending its life completely. He then dispersed its spiritual energy before stuffing its entire body into his spatial ring. Although this demonic dragon is only a 4th level saint, it's still a dragon, so I'll keep it. That fellow Chen Duo praised the dragon's meat for being delicious, leaving a lingering fragrance on one's teeth and cheeks. As his boss, how can I let him have all the praise? I'll definitely hold a dragon feast in the future and make him die of envy. It was for this reason that Yun-Yang kept the entire dragon in his spatial ring. After a moment of silence, there was another uproar. Seeing that General Jiao San was dead and the dragon's body had been taken away by the person before them, countless sea demons knew that they were in trouble. They spun on the surface of the water in an attempt to escape. It was a pity that Yun-Yang's saber swung and displayed his true ability this time. The area within a 3,000-mile radius was completely sealed. With a single slash, the heads of hundreds of thousands of sea demons in the area flew into the air and were sent to the underworld together. As a large number of souls were destroyed, many of the inner cores that had appeared were also swept away by Emmy as they glowed at the same time. Behind Yun-Yang, Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu were still moving the mountains. Those that were easy to move were easily tossed aside as long as they were moved away from the main route. As for those that were especially sturdy, they were smashed with a single punch. Hence, there were occasional explosions of rocks that flew for thousands of miles. As Yun-Yang eliminated the enemy with a single slash, there were no longer any demons within a 1,000-mile radius. The sea seemed exceptionally calm for a moment. It was a pity that the peace only lasted for a short while. A ripple appeared in the air, and with a swoosh, a crack appeared in the space. Someone tore through the space and rushed over. After a few swoosh sounds, a few fiery red phoenixes appeared on the scene. Before both parties could speak, more swoosh sounds were heard. The Golden Dragon Clan and the Black Dragon Clan had arrived. After a while, the clouds in the sky changed. Emperor Rock, who was like a cloud that hung from the sky, arrived before Yun-Yang in 2 flashes. Then, golden light flickered on the surface of the sea as hundreds of silhouettes appeared. They were the true higher-ups of the Neptune clan, and each of them wore a grim expression. The leaders of the Neptune clan were a few humanoid dragons, their bodies glowing with a holy white light as they came on the waves. Sensing the arrival of Saint Masters, the Saint Masters of the demonic race, be it on land or sea, had all come personally as proof. With a long howl from Yun-Yang, Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu immediately stopped their destructive actions and returned to his side. Not only were there a large number of enemies, but their abilities were also incomparable to the demons from before. If the 3 of them were to remain scattered, they might be defeated one by one. That would be disastrous. A wolf's howl rang out from afar as the space shattered like glass once more. Dozens of gigantic wolf demons appeared, and the one leading them was none other than the Wolf Emperor. As soon as it appeared, its murderous eyes locked onto Yun-Yang. After observing him for a while, it bellowed angrily, "No, you don't belong to the Wolf clan. Damn thing, who are you? How dare you impersonate a demon of our clan?" Yun-Yang was not in the mood to bicker with the Alpha Wolf. He had just realized something frightening. The disparity between the top-notch combat power of the Bound of Universe and the demon race was so great. The highest leader had yet to appear, but there were already more than 20 Saint-level experts gathered here. There were obviously many more Saint-level experts from the Dragon Clan, Phoenix Clan, Tiger Clan, and Bear Clan who had yet to arrive. As for the Bound of Universe, including those who had just ascended from the Palace of 9 Supremes, there were less than 20 Saint-level experts in total. No wonder Dongfang Haoran and the others had always been so pessimistic. The Bound of Universe's humans clearly had the upper hand in terms of dominating combat power, but the war was still more or less at a stalemate. Every time they relied on tactics, formations, and even heroes who risked their lives to save the situation. Just by looking at the current lineup of the humans and demons, the humans would have long become the demonic race's hunting ground if they had lost the Bloody Soul Mountain as a natural barrier. Emperor Rock narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun-Yang, then at Ji Lingxi and the others. He sneered and said, "So it's a human impersonator. No wonder. Humans." As soon as the words were spoken, the Sea Clan and the demonic race on the land, who had initially disliked each other, were stunned. The atmosphere changed abruptly. Great demons of the sage level and above, all demons attacked together and trapped them. Surround and kill them. As long as we kill these 3, we don't care how many casualties we have to pay. Keep these 3 here, and the top combat power of the human race will be reduced by 20%. Emperor Rock ordered decisively. Those with lower cultivation base, move the mountain and block the seawater outlet. Those of the Sea Clan go back and report. Ask the Imperial Court to send more experts over. The people now aren't enough to kill the 3 saints together. Emperor Rock's arrangements were very appropriate. He could tell at a glance that with his current strength, it shouldn't be a problem for him to trap the 3 human experts in front of him. However, he couldn't kill them all. Experts who had reached the Saint Realm, no matter if it was their physical body or divine sense, they were almost indestructible. Even if they were at the same level, it was already extremely difficult to injure or defeat them. It was even more difficult to surround and trap them. As for killing them, it was absolutely impossible without paying a price that was several times more than the original price. Similarly, although Yun-Yang had previously killed countless demons and 4th-level Saint Monarch Dragon race experts, that was built on the premise that there was a difference of a major level between them. It was extremely difficult to kill these Saint Monarchs of the Sea and Demon race in front of him when facing experts of the same level. Among the experts who could reach the Sage level, which one of them wasn't God's favored one? They were the best of the best, and they naturally had countless opportunities with them, many trump cards in hand, and too many ways to save their lives and escape. At this moment, a total of 27 Saint-level experts from the demon race's sea, land and air forces joined forces and surrounded Yun-Yang and the other 2. In the next moment, the sound of swords and sabers slicing through the air rang out. The force of fists and palms overflowed. The battle of encirclement had begun. Yun-Yang and the other 2 were besieged and the situation was dire, but none of the 3 of them were in a hurry. The first contact between the 2 sides, The result of the first collision between the saint-level combat power shocked the demon race's saint experts. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The demons were powerful. Yun Yang and the other two, who were at a disadvantage, did not think about defending themselves but attacked with brute force instead. Yun Yang unleashed the first 6 and 12 styles of Destiny Blade's first 6 styles like a thunderstorm. Then he followed it up with, "What harm is there in slaughtering the world?" The force of the saber and sword filled the heaven and earth, like a laser beam that flowed from heaven to earth, piercing through the entire space. As the saber and sword converged, the two famous styles were unleashed one after another. The result was exceptionally fruitful. The 27 saint experts on the other side had endured the impact of the saber and sword energy. 8 of them were severely injured, and one of them had his heart pierced by Yun Yang's saber. Countless saber energy exploded at the vital spot on his chest. Immediately, the demon saint's body shattered like a bomb. If it had been any other cultivator below the level of saint, they would have definitely died in the face of such injuries. However, as a white light flashed in the air, the demon saint who had his body shattered reappeared. Although his face was pale and his gaze was filled with fear, he was still alive and had not truly died. The other saints who were severely injured, had their legs or arms broken, had recovered in an instant. The others who only had superficial injuries were even less of a problem. Emperor Rock roared when he saw Yun Yang's might. With a clang, his claws collided with Yun Yang's saber head-on. With a loud bang, countless members of the sea tribe within a 1,000-mile radius floated on the surface of the water, their bellies turned upside down. However, Yun Yang's resolute saber, which had always been indestructible and indestructible, did not manage to sever his claws. Instead, it was forcefully blocked. It was also because of Emperor Rock's obstruction that Yun Yang's attack did not hurt many people. After all, Yun Yang's intention to perform the convergence of saber and sword was to cripple all these fellows in front of him. After all, these were Saint Realm experts. Although they were Saint Realm experts, their actual abilities were much weaker than top-notch Saint Realm experts. Yun Yang's full-powered slash could, of course, teach them a lesson that would last for life. Even if he could not kill them, he wanted to leave an internal demon in their hearts that they would never be able to match up to Yun Yang. However, it was restrained by Emperor Rock. The two of them retreated and looked at each other. They could feel each other's strength, and a sense of caution rose in their hearts. When the 27 experts of the demon race formed an encirclement again, their expressions were extremely solemn. Obviously, everyone knew that this fellow in front of them was the strongest enemy they had ever seen in their lives. He was not someone that anyone present could fight against. Even though sages were undying and indestructible, if they were to face this human one-on-one, they might really be crushed by him and perish. He was a terrifying enemy that they had never seen before. Chapter 1466. Which human are you? Emperor Rock asked sternly as he attacked. He basically knew all the pinnacle human saint-level experts and had even fought them all, but none of them matched the figure and style of the person before him. Since when did such a terrifying pinnacle saint expert emerge from the human race? Yun Yang did not utter a word. He swung his saber and slashed again, one strike after another. His power did not diminish at all, and each strike seemed to be familiar yet different. It was as if he had seen it before, but when he parried it with what he had seen before, it became a completely unfamiliar technique. Yun Yang's saber truth. Destiny Blade had evolved again after going through the Supreme Heaven Pavilion. It had already reached the realm of mastery where he could execute it as he pleased. His casual slash carried the essence of heaven and earth and the fundamental meaning of it. The unpredictable trajectory of his strikes, the angle of his saber, and the casual slash were enough to make the demonic experts in front of him flustered and overwhelmed. Amidst the battle, there was a sudden gasp from the other side. It was a saint expert fighting Ji Lingxi. Amidst the intense battle, Ji Lingxi had suddenly shown an opening. No, it could not be said that she had bought an opening. She had pretended that she could not dodge at all, but she had purposely used her body to receive the attack. Although the demonic saint did not know the reason, there was no reason for him not to take advantage of the situation. Halfway through the strike, he exerted a third of his strength and struck Ji Lingxi squarely. However, the result of the attack was a flash of white light. The saint expert spat blood and was thrown thousands of miles away. His chi and meridians were in disarray, and his combat strength was extinguished. The person who had cast the seal on Ji Lingxi was far more capable than the limits of this world. Even a saint expert would not be able to shake him. It was only because a saint expert had reached the pinnacle of this world and was immortal. Otherwise he would have ended up like the person who had suffered the recoil earlier, dead and destroyed in both body and soul. While the crowd was shocked by the result of the attack, they saw that Ji Lingxi seemed to be completely unscathed. She continued to swing her sword towards another saint of the Sea clan without a pause. At this moment, all the demonic and Sea clan experts were dumbstruck. She had injured a beginner-level saint expert with just the recoil alone? What cultivation base was this? Wasn't it a little too fantastical? On the other side, Shengguan Lingxiu guffawed and followed suit, charging forward without evading. With a loud bang, another flash of white light flashed and a mid-level Saint Realm expert was sent flying from the recoil as well. Then all the demons lost their voices. Wow, what was the body structure of these two women? How could they be so strong? A moment later, the two Saint Masters who had been sent flying recovered and returned to the battle. However, there was only shock in their eyes when they looked at Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu. Witnessing such a shocking scene, the demonic race experts were aghast, but Yun Yang was not elated. Instead he was dejected. Knowing that Ji Lingxi's situation was different from Shengguan Lingxiu's and that she could not be intimate with someone whose cultivation base was at the pinnacle of a saint, Yun Yang, who had suffered too many losses, dared not act recklessly. However, he still held on to a sliver of hope, hoping that the seal on Ji Lingxi was not that extreme and that he could still succeed if he gave it a try. Now, however, it was proven that even a Saint Realm expert could recoil so forcefully. It looked like the other path to the bridal chamber was still long and distant. Yun Yang and the other two were impressive as they attacked the demons with everything they had. However, as the battle continued, new experts from the demonic race and the Sea clan joined the fray. The number of people involved in the battle grew denser and denser. Based on the situation, Yun Yang and the other two were naturally at a disadvantage. It looked like they were in danger of being besieged by a sea of people, but the three of them were able to move freely, forcing the demon race saint-level experts into a sorry state, completely unable to threaten the safety of the three of them. However, it was becoming increasingly difficult for the three of them to break out of the siege in a short amount of time. Furthermore, as the number of reinforcements from the demonic race increased, the pressure that the three of them had to bear increased as well. As the saying went, ants could bite an elephant to death when there were enough of them. This was especially true now, as none of these ants were ordinary. They were at least carnivorous ants, the kind that could not be killed or destroyed easily. On the other side, millions of demonic race experts of all levels were using their own strengths to move the mountains, hoping to seal the huge gap that Yun Yang and the others had moved in the shortest time possible. However, they did not know that the two ladies had already been instructed by Yun Yang. Other than blowing up the mountains, they had also shattered the roots of the mountains when they were moved and tossed away. Furthermore, when they were tossed to the ground, the massive force that the mountains had to withstand caused the internal structure to become unstable, even if they could still maintain their shape. In this way, in the process of being moved back, many of the mountains directly announced that they could not bear the burden and exploded. Or after being successfully moved back, they were washed away by the flood. As everyone knew, even when the water was very strong, the isolated peaks could still stand tall and fearless. However, the current situation was that these peaks that had been moved back had been moved several times and had been tossed around by the two women. Barely maintaining the shape of the mountains was already their limit. When they were hit by the water at its strongest state, how could they bear it? They were directly disintegrated by the impact and turned into gravel all over the ground. When a mountain was turned into gravel, it could only be washed away by the water, unable to stop it at all. Therefore, the demonic race would often toss a mountain into the water after working for half a day, only to be washed away by the water. After a few lessons, many of the demonic race flew far away to move another mountain. The nearby mountains that had been moved could no longer be used, so their efforts were futile. At this moment, the sky darkened for a moment before it regained its brightness. A beam of rainbow light rose from afar, illuminating the entire world. It was a group of gigantic phoenixes and a group of humongous dragons. Together, they were moving 17 to 18 huge mountains and flew over slowly. In front of these two groups was another beam of rainbow flame that was even more dazzling. It crossed the space in a flash, burning everything in its path into nothingness. It was none other than the Phoenix Emperor. The demonic flames of the Phoenix Emperor soared into the sky, its aura immensely majestic. With a flash in the air, it appeared outside the battlefield. The moment it transformed into its human form, its movement technique increased to a whole new level. It appeared beside Ji Lingxi abruptly and punched out. The punch was imbued with rainbow flames, melting everything within 1,000 feet radius into a black hole. Ji Lingxi felt as if the sky above her had darkened from the sudden punch. Faced with such overwhelming power, she did not even have the thought of dodging it for a moment. Ji Lingxi's mind went blank as she watched the punch land forcefully on her chest like a bolt of lightning. The Phoenix Emperor's attack was too swift, too sudden. Everything had come out of the blue without warning. Complemented by her astounding ability, even if she were to attack Yun Yang, she would definitely be hit, let alone Ji Lingxi, whose cultivation base was a level lower. For the first time, Ji Lingxi's protective mystical light that had always worked perfectly did not appear in response to the incoming attack. Her chest sank as the Phoenix Emperor felt that her attack had landed on something. Before she could rejoice that her attack had landed, a white light flashed and an unimaginably powerful rebound was unleashed. The Phoenix Emperor roared, the light around it growing 10 times brighter. It was obvious that it had reacted swiftly, attempting to defend itself against the inexplicable recoil with its strongest force. However, even though the Phoenix Emperor had mustered all its strength, it was still thrown tens of thousands of feet away uncontrollably. Its body flipped, its demonic aura disrupted, and its eyes were filled with terror. That strike just now was not the power of its clones. It was a punch that combined all of its clones and the art of nirvanic flair of nirvanic retribution. It had actually bounced back. How was this possible? How could there be someone like this in this world? Just where did this human girl come from? The Phoenix Emperor did not know that ever since Ji Lingxi had activated the mystical light, no one or thing had ever been able to hurt Ji Lingxi before the mystical light was activated. This achievement alone was enough for her to look down on the world, even the universe. Ji Lingxi grunted as her protective mystical light was damaged. Her petite form was thrown hundreds of miles away like a kite with a broken string. Blood spurted uncontrollably from her cherry lips, her face drained of color. Yin Yang was shocked to see this. He flung his 3 opponents away and came to Ji Lingxi's side in a flash. Ji Lingxi's breathing was weak and she was looking at him weakly, murmuring, "My injuries aren't light." Yun Yang gritted his teeth and said, "Let's retreat first." Then he kept Ji Lingxi into his deific consciousness and asked Emmy to heal her before he returned to the center of the battlefield and joined Shangguan Lingxiu. "Phoenix Emperor, I'll remember this punch today," he hollered. The Phoenix Emperor had already rushed back and was about to join the battle, but he was shocked by Yun Yang's words. He could not help exclaiming, "You're Yun Yang? You're Yun Yang?" Yun Yang and Shangguan Lingxiu had already broken out of the encirclement. Like 2 meteors, they fled hundreds of miles away without looking back and gradually disappeared. Yun Yang had already disappeared, but the Phoenix Emperor was still rooted to the spot, disbelief filling her eyes. The pinnacle human saint expert before her was Yun Yang. How was this possible? The last time he saw him, he was just a mere saint venerable. It had only been 2 years, but he had already surpassed 4 levels of Saint Lord, half saint, and 3 levels of saint to reach the pinnacle of saint. How could his cultivation-based progress be so fast? The Phoenix Emperor had known since a long time ago and was certain that Yun Yang was the demon race's greatest threat. As long as he was given time, the demon race would suffer greatly in Yun Yang's hands. Even when he was actively promoting the plan against the bound of universe humans, he was also wary of Yun Yang. However, he still did not expect Yun Yang's improvement to be so fast and shocking. On the other side, dozens of mountains crashed down, cutting off the torrential flow of water. The waterway returned to its original flow. Following that, the saints worked together to reinforce the mountains to ensure that there were no gaps in the waterway. The waterway returned to its original state, but every saint of the demon race wore a grim expression. In this battle there were only 3 humans who came, but they caused abnormally serious consequences. Roughly estimating, there were a total of 50 saints of the demon race and the Sea clan fighting here, as well as many demons who had perished here previously. What was more, the other party could escape unscathed in the face of unforeseen events. How many in the entire demon race, be it on land or in the sea, could there be such capabilities? If they were to march into the bound of universe one day, could they, who had reached the pinnacle of the saint realm, be assured of immortality and prosperity under such an enemy? The battle just now had not taken much time, but the number of high-level combatants of the Sea clan who had perished had reached 1 million. It was a shocking number. Even though none of the saint masters of the demon race and the Sea clan had perished in this battle, every saint master who had fought with Yun Yang felt a deep sense of danger. If there were fewer people, it would not be difficult for Yun Yang to destroy the souls of saints. His saber was faintly overflowing with a sense of severing one's Tao and destroying one's life. It was a power that even the indestructible saint masters would feel fear and dread. The joint attack of more than 50 saints had only managed to suppress the other party, unable to do anything to him. What if they were to fight one-on-one? The demons did not even dare to think about this question, afraid that it would further aggravate their inner demons. If that happened, they would not even have the courage to fight when they met again in the future. Yun-Yang, the general trend has been set. The Phoenix Emperor heaved a long sigh. My extreme decision to instigate this decisive strategy was indeed correct. This might be the only chance left for us. I initially thought that he would need at least another 100 years to achieve invincibility. Now, it seems that I've still underestimated this child. Perhaps Yun-Yang only needs another year or two and he'll be unparalleled in this world, undefeatable. If we can't kill Yun-Yang within a year, it will never be possible for our race to march into the bound of universe. The Phoenix Emperor's words were resolute. Is the Sea Sovereign here? Asked the Phoenix Emperor. He's here. Following the reply, a silhouette on the surface of the sea quickly materialized. The established plan is still too slow. It has to be brought forward. The Phoenix Emperor's voice was heavy. The Sea Sovereign was silent for a moment before he said, through the sense of chi just now, I can understand your current mood. However, I'm afraid the number of lives that the Sea Clan can offer is less than 10 billion. Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor, if you... The Phoenix Emperor's eyes were bloodshot, but his tone was indifferent as he said, Your Majesty Sea Sovereign, the demon race has lost tens of billions of lives because of the gathering of the sea. They've turned into the Sea Clan's food. Isn't that enough? If you can't even fulfill the initial promise. The Phoenix Emperor said faintly, we can gather the sea to create a tide, but we can also move the mountains and fill the seas. At the very least, it shouldn't be too difficult to destroy these mountains and let the Sea Clan return to where they started. The Sea Sovereign's silhouette narrowed his eyes. Phoenix Emperor, you're threatening me? The Phoenix Emperor smiled faintly. The Sea Clan is undoubtedly powerful, but you're far from being able to force me with this. I'm only asking you, when will you hand over the lives of 10 billion Sea Clan's high-level warriors? The Phoenix Emperor's eyes shot out a blood-red divine light as he stared straight at the Sea Sovereign. The silhouette was silent for a long time before he snorted coldly. I'm a man of my word. Since the agreement was made, then I'll act according to it. Phoenix Emperor, you're the one who wants to bring forward the plan. Isn't it my fault? The Phoenix Emperor said coldly, you also said that you sensed the battle just now. Do you still not know the threat level of the person I'm talking about? If the demon race falls, do you think that the Sea Clan will be able to remain unscathed? The silhouette paused and said in a low voice, Then what do you want? The Phoenix Emperor said, I want it within 3 months. All right. The seawater didn't move, but the silhouette of the Sea Sovereign had already quietly dissipated. All the Sea Clan members also quickly disappeared. Chapter 1467. The Phoenix Emperor stood in the air. Your Majesty. The demon saints bowed. The Phoenix Emperor nodded and looked at Emperor Rock. Brother Rock, what do you think of the battle just now? Emperor Rock said lightly, There's nothing special about it. Your Majesty has your own plans. I only need to follow. The Phoenix Emperor held his hands behind his back and said in an even calmer tone, Brother Rock held back a lot just now. There's indeed no need to think about it. Emperor Rock chuckled. Why can't I understand your Majesty's words? The Phoenix Emperor paced in the air and said indifferently, I wonder if Brother Rock has any objections to the orders of the two sovereigns, Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor? Emperor Rock's expression suddenly changed, and his tone returned to indifference. I still have my original attitude. Nothing else matters. However, Brother Fox and Brother Cat can't. The Phoenix Emperor said coldly, If the rebellion fails, are you going to sacrifice your brothers on the same side? I know that you are friends with the Fox and the Cat, but why are you so stubborn when it comes to such a big issue? Emperor Rock's expression was calm as he said word by word, Firstly, they are my brothers. Secondly, Your Majesty, you know very well why Cat and Fox are like this. Don't you have a guilty conscience when you say the word rebellion? There's a cause and effect for everything. The culprit has never been Fox, much less Cat. The Phoenix Emperor said coldly, but the others didn't betray us. Fox and the rest are now on different sides from us. This is already a fact. Emperor Rock sneered. So I'm just luckier than them. We're very lucky that we weren't forced to this stage. If I were to encounter such a thing, I believe I would rebel faster than the two of them. Isn't that right? The Phoenix Emperor said, So when Yun-Yang broke out of the encirclement, You only watched by the side and deliberately let Yin Yang and the other two go? Emperor Rock mocked. Do you think we can keep Yin Yang and the other two here if we use our full strength? Brother Phoenix, you can't see clearly? Yin Yang is far from using his full strength. How many demons do you think will die here today if Yin Yang uses his full strength? The Phoenix Sovereign was silent for a moment before she said, but today is already the first time that we have great hope. When Yin Yang broke out of the encirclement, I was helpless against the recoil, but Brother Peng's speed is the fastest in the entire demonic race. If Brother Peng had made a move, even if he couldn't keep Yin Yang, he could have kept the two ladies. With Yin Yang's attitude towards them, if they hadn't escaped, Yin Yang wouldn't have escaped alone. Emperor Rock calmly said, yes, but the price is that I have to pay is at least severely injured and on the verge of death. Furthermore, the chance of success is less than 50%. But if I were to be heavily injured, then the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor would lose this life-saving straw that I am. How would they be able to escape this calamity? The Phoenix Emperor's gaze was cold. The Rock Emperor looked up and met the Phoenix Emperor's eyes without giving in at all. He enunciated each word clearly. If it were a fair life and death battle, I would have nothing to say if they died. But now, gathering the sea to form a tide and devouring all the people of the Fox clan, forcing the two of them to fall into a trap, struggling at death's door, and even using someone else to kill them, I will never do such a thing. I won't watch you do it either. If Brother Phoenix really wants to sacrifice the Fox Emperor and Cat Ancestor, then I, along with the Eagle, Tiger, Leopard, and Condor, might have to immediately rebel against the Demon Court and fight alongside the Fox and the others. If we watch them die, what awaits us will only be a similar outcome. He sneered coldly. Do you think the Fox won't think of what Yin Yang is doing now? Can't he move a few mountains? Why didn't he do it? He's only worried about the demon race's hundreds of thousands of years of wish. He doesn't want to go to the extreme and would rather suffer. Now, are you the ones who want to go to the extreme? Emperor Rock said coldly, Brother Phoenix, that's all I have to say. Before he could finish his sentence, a whistling sound rang out. Emperor Rock soared into the sky, along with all the Rock Saints. They flapped their wings and flew high, instantly covering the entire sky. In the next moment they disappeared. Looking in the direction where Emperor Rock had left, the Phoenix Emperor stood for a long time with a complicated gaze. After a long time, the Phoenix Emperor stood alone in the air, his expression heavy and complicated. After a while, the Phoenix Emperor walked slowly with his hands behind his back. He moved gently in the air, his expression returning to its calm state. However, his gaze suddenly turned cold. Somewhere tens of thousands of feet away from the Phoenix Emperor, a demon expert flew past. There seemed to be a spatial fluctuation. Fluctuation? The Phoenix Emperor roared and swung his hand. With a loud bang, a black hole appeared tens of thousands of feet away, but nothing strange appeared in that spot. The Phoenix Emperor did not relax. He teleported over and looked over with rapt attention. His left and right hands attacked at the same time, and balls of nirvanic flames scattered across the sky for thousands of miles. In an instant, the entire sky was occupied by the nirvanic flames that could burn everything. The Phoenix Emperor's figure was like a phantom that flashed at an extremely fast speed, constantly appearing everywhere in the sky. Wherever he passed, the surroundings would be enveloped in a sea of fire. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the sea, tens of thousands of miles in circumference, was already filled with blazing flames that engulfed heaven and earth. The Phoenix Emperor stood on the towering flames, his eyes still searching around. Suddenly he smiled faintly and said, Yin Yang, how does this nirvanic flames taste? What's the point of enduring it? Why don't you show yourself for a while? The air was silent, as if the Phoenix Emperor was merely speaking without thinking. The Phoenix Empress moved again. Her entire body rose higher and higher as if she was ascending a heavenly ladder. Immense mental energy descended like a dome. The nirvanic heavenly flames enveloped the entire area within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. The flames were still burning the sky, the earth, and the space. There was nothing that they could not burn. Everything in this area was burned into black holes bit by bit. The soft sound of space shattering could be heard continuously. The demon race and sea race that were still within were burned into nothingness without exception. This was an indiscriminate attack that covered a large area. The unlucky demon race experts and sea race warriors who were struck by the nirvanic flames did not even have the time to scream before they perished. After a while, the nirvana heavenly flames had already burned everything in the area. The instant the heavenly flames could no longer burn anything, the vast amount of spiritual energy outside the area rushed in like a tsunami to fill the vacuum. The Phoenix Emperor's spiritual energy was like a hurricane, and as the vast amount of spiritual energy surged in, it blew over and then blew back, going back and forth endlessly. After a long time, the Phoenix Emperor finally snorted coldly and stopped moving, sensing it quietly. Then he smiled faintly and said, "You escaped quickly." With a flash, he went to the peak of one of the mountains that was being moved. Hundreds of demon race experts bowed at the same time. "Your Majesty," the Phoenix Emperor said faintly, "don't worry, it's fine now." Yes. The demon race experts were relieved. The experts guarding this area had been killed by Yunyang previously, so they were truly afraid. Now that they had the Phoenix Emperor's guarantee, they were naturally at ease and had no more doubts. The Phoenix Emperor pondered for a moment and decided to leave 7 to 8 saint-level experts behind, just in case. If Yunyang comes again, there's no need to fight him to the death. Just keep him occupied and report back. Don't ask for merit, just don't make any mistakes. Remember, Yunyang's ability is already above all of you. Avoiding battle is wisdom, not cowardice. Yes. The Phoenix Emperor disappeared in a flash. Yunyang was worried about Ji Lingxi's injuries, so he did not stay any longer and returned to the Fox Palace. Although this battle had not lasted for a long time, it had temporarily alleviated the plight of the Fox clan. At least, the flood outside the Fox Palace had been reduced by a lot, and the water had sunk by at least 100 feet. The lucky survivors of the Fox clan cheered. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor were shocked to see Yunyang, Shangguan Lingxiu, and Shangguan Lingxiu's condition. The three of them had been fine when they left, but when they returned, Ji Lingxi was severely injured while Yunyang was covered in smoke and fire, with many blisters on his body. Even his hair had been singed. At the very least, he looked like he had been severely injured. Only Shangguan Lingxiu seemed to be in good condition. "How did you end up in such a sorry state?" The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor welcomed the three of them into the hall and quickly retrieved healing medicine. "There's no need. We've consumed the healing medicine when we came back. We'll be fine after some rest." Yunyang exclaimed, "The Phoenix Emperor's nirvana flame is powerful indeed. It's beyond imagination." He had never expected the Phoenix Emperor to resort to such an extreme method, to destroy himself along with them. When he left for the first time, he had relied on his wind cloud manifestation to be undetectable. It looked like he had left without a trace, but he had actually snuck back again. What he did not expect was that his wind cloud manifestation, which rarely failed, would actually fail as well. He had almost suffered a great loss and almost could not return. As the saying went, the more one ascends the mountain, the more one encounters the tiger. The more one travels the shore, the more one's shoes will be wet. Using the wind cloud manifestation, Yunyang seemed to have turned into nothingness, eavesdropping nearby to spy on the demon race's situation. If he could aim at the Phoenix Emperor's blind spot, he would not mind giving him a vicious blow. Yunyang estimated that if he were to use Saber Truth, Destiny Blade and massacre the world, Saber and Sword Union on the Phoenix Emperor alone, he could definitely injure her severely or even destroy her physical body, creating the time difference between the destruction and repetition of a saint's physical body. Combining the power of his and Emmy's deific consciousness, there was a high chance that he could further damage the Phoenix Emperor's soul. The Phoenix Emperor had severely injured Ji Lingxi right under his nose. How could Yunyang not be resentful? It was a great opportunity for the Phoenix Emperor to be alone. How could he not seize it? Yunyang's plan was well executed, but what was unexpected was that a demon's divine sense coincidentally crossed paths with Yunyang's when he was flying. If he did not avoid it, both of them would definitely come into contact. At that moment, Yunyang's state of mind crumbled. How can you King charge straight at me in such a wide space? Or could it be that you've seen something? If both of them were to come into contact, Yunyang would still produce a certain degree of fluctuation when he was collided with such an expert, even though he was in the shapeless form of wind and cloud. Even though the fluctuation was not huge, it was like a thunderclap in the ears of a top-notch expert like the Phoenix Emperor. Yunyang was helpless. Choosing the lesser of two evils, he flashed away. There was only a slight fluctuation and there were very few traces. In spite of this, the slight trace of fluctuation was still noticed by the Phoenix Emperor. Even though Yunyang had shifted his position immediately, how could the Phoenix Emperor allow Yunyang to leave so easily since he had already caught hold of the fluctuation? In particular, the Phoenix Emperor's counterattack mode greatly exceeded Yunyang's expectations as well. It was a large area of nirvanic flame. Then the Phoenix Emperor chased after the fluctuation, chasing after Yun Yang's tail. Yun Yang sped all the way and finally escaped the Phoenix Emperor's deific consciousness after a few twists and turns. However, this Phoenix Emperor, who was either wise or mad, had actually launched an even larger area of indiscriminate attack. It was an indiscriminate attack that covered tens of thousands of miles of the sky. Everywhere was covered in nirvanic flame by the Phoenix Emperor. No matter how fast Yun Yang moved, he still could not leave the area in time. Naturally, he was caught up by the flame and was engulfed in it. It was also then that Yun Yang truly experienced the terror of the Phoenix Emperor's famous nirvanic flame. He was proficient in the art of fire and had thought that he could control the flames with fire, avoiding the flames to a large extent. He did not expect the nirvanic flame to be so omnipotent that even the fiery spark that he controlled was incinerated. However, the technique of the Nine Supremes' fiery spark was extraordinary after all. It allowed Yun Yang to forcefully resist the nirvanic flame all the way out. When he finally broke out, he was already burned like a toad. Yun Yang heaved a sigh of relief. He had kept Shangguan Lingxiu into his deific consciousness space when he saw that the situation was not looking good. Otherwise, he did not know how Shangguan Lingxiu would be. The Phoenix Emperor had previously injured Ji Lingxi and the nirvanic flame was so formidable. Yun Yang could not be sure that the lady's defensive mystical light could withstand the nirvanic flame. Did they not see that his fiery spark had been incinerated? He had been roasted into. What was he supposed to do? If his wife's beauty was ruined by this fire, how could he live? Looking at your injuries, could you have met the Phoenix Emperor? The Fox Emperor frowned. Why would the Phoenix Emperor be here? His nirvanic flame can burn anything. This is troublesome. It's alright, I have a countermeasure. I can handle it. It won't be as difficult as the heaven sealing spell from before. Yun Yang could feel his face beginning to blister as well. He dared not delay any longer and said hurriedly, I'll make this short. Let's finish up quickly. I still have to heal myself. Since their return, Ji Lingxi's injuries had improved significantly. Yun Yang, on the other hand, was showing signs of worsening due to being burned by the nirvanic flame for a long period of time. His skin, which was originally fine, actually showed a trend of being burned and blistered. The fire elemental damage of the nirvanic flame was extraordinary indeed. It was like maggots in one's bones, lingering endlessly. It was indeed the Phoenix Emperor's natal flame. Even with Yun Yang's profound cultivation base and the mystical skill like the endless divine art to protect himself, he could not handle it on his own. I've eavesdropped on the conversation between the Phoenix Emperor and the others. Yun Yang's voice was urgent. The general direction of the Phoenix Emperor's plan seems to be to lead the sea into a tidal wave, accumulating the force of water to the maximum. Then another plan will be detonated. The Phoenix Emperor has mentioned solemnly that he wants the Sea Emperor to prepare the lives of billions of Sea Clan warriors. This should be the catalyst. Just as he spoke, the Fox Emperor and the Cat ancestors' faces paled. Their faces were drained of color, and they looked unusually bleak. The update time is not stable anymore. Everyone should have guessed that I'm back. Chapter 1468. Yun Yang continued, his voice urgent. Although I don't understand this plan at all, apart from the 10 billion sea masses, it seems like it needs two emperors. The Phoenix Empress clearly has her eyes on the two of you, but Rock Empress isn't willing to sacrifice the two of you. He even had a conflict with the Phoenix Emperor because of this, saying that it's a crucial moment. He would rather betray the demon court with the Tiger Emperor, the Panther Emperor, the Eagle Emperor, and the others than let the both of you be sacrificed. That's about it. I believe that you two should have some understanding of the details. Both of you take your time to think about it. I have to go heal. The Phoenix Emperor's unique flame is impressive indeed. At this time, blisters began to form on Yun Yang's body from head to toe, spreading layer by layer in a horrifying manner. Shangguan Lingxiu was worried as she watched the scene unfold. She anxiously helped Yun Yang into the inner chamber. What should we do? Aren't you adept in the power of fire as well? Why can't you do anything about the will-o-wisp? It's all right. Don't worry. I'll cultivate with all my might later. With my unique skill, I can definitely restrain the will-o-wisp. How can the Phoenix Empress injure me? Have more faith in me. Yun Yang was calm. Even if it's beyond my ability and I can't suppress it, there's still Emmy. It can handle it. The only problem is the duration of healing. It's not a big deal. Yun Yang spoke simply and casually, but he knew that his injury this time was not light. In fact, it was the most severe injury he had ever suffered since his debut. Up until now, he had used 13 streams of chi of vitality that Emmy had sent, as well as Emmy's power of origin that flowed throughout his body to force the fire poison out bit by bit. It was because of this that there were blisters forming on his skin. This was also a testament to the terror of the nirvanic flames. Even Emmy's power of origin could not completely eliminate it. It had to be forced out of his body before it could go further. Shangguan Lingxiu held the silver needles with tears streaming down her face, prying open the blisters for Yunyang bit by bit. Looking at the pus that flowed out from the blisters, it was actually hotter than lava. Emmy's origin energy forced out another layer when it finally managed to get rid of the first layer. Just like that, 3 wheals were forced out everywhere from head to toe. There were even a few in its pupils. Luckily, I've broken through to the pinnacle of Saint's cultivation base now. Yunyang's expression was relaxed, but his heart was filled with relief. If he was only at the initial or middle stage of the Sage realm, even if he did not die this time, he would have to pay a huge price to resolve this problem. If it was someone else, that person would be dead for sure. Even Dongfang Haoren might not be able to escape. With the resources Yunyang had expended to deal with the Skyfire of Nirvana and the help of Emmy's power of origin, even the 3 rulers would not be able to do so. It was not an easy feat, the fate of us sisters. Ji Lingxi leaned weakly against the headboard and chuckled wryly as she teased. It took me so much effort to find a man, but we parted ways after a short while. When we met again, the pretty boy had turned into a sly fox. It took me so much effort to wait for him to regain his human form, but it's only been a few days, and he's turned into a huge toad again. Even if he recovers, he'll still have to be pockmarked for a period of time, and bald for a period of time. Despite Shangguan Lingxiu's heavy heart, she almost laughed when she heard the teasing. She pursed her lips and said, "He's completely bald from head to toe. There's not a single strand of hair left. Not only is he bald, he's a real hairless person now." Yunyang closed his eyes, waiting for the blisters in his eyes to bulge as he said, "Not a single strand of hair left? Is everything down there gone as well? That's bad. Wouldn't I become a dragon, a green dragon?" The 2 girls were flushed, wanting nothing more than to beat him up. This bastard was so badly injured, but he was still being naughty and talking nonsense. It took a whole night for Yunyang's injuries to be treated. He lay naked on the bed, but there was nothing to be seen, only scars all over his body. Other than his eyes, there were scars everywhere else. Yunyang protested vehemently, "I say, you should at least take care of the important parts down there. Let the scars go away first. That place is even weaker than my eyes. Lingxi, did you do it on purpose? Your sister Lingxiu still needs to use it these few days." For a moment, Ji Lingxi blushed to her ears while Shangguan Lingxiu's face was so red that it almost reached her chest. Both girls spat hatefully, not wanting to stay with this shameless and hairless person any longer. They turned to walk out of the room and waited outside. Once they sat down, they looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It was usually fine, but ever since this fellow had started eating meat, he had become unrestrained, spouting all sorts of dirty words from his mouth like a torrent of dirty water. There were many times when they really could not stand him anymore. Ji Lingxi felt that she had recovered a little and could not help asking Shangguan Lingxiu curiously, "Hey, is that very weak? How do I use it then?" Shangguan Lingxiu blushed, almost stunned. When she snapped out of it, she fled immediately, vanishing without a trace. Seeing that the 2 girls had left, Yunyang could no longer continue, his entire body contorting. It was fine if he was in pain. Since the battle at the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, there was no pain in this world that could shake Yunyang's mental state. However, it was not only pain now, it was more like an itch. It was an extraordinary itch. Itch was a sensation that surpassed the sense of pain. It was a sensation that was completely different from pain. Those who could endure extreme pain would find it hard to endure itch. As an injury in the process of being injured and healed, itch and pain would coexist. Pain and itch spread throughout his entire body. Even Yunyang could not bear it. Both of his wives were present just now. In order to maintain his dignity as the head of the household, Yunyang had resisted the urge to make a move. He had to maintain a straight face as he chatted until he could no longer hold it in. Only then did he embarrass the 2 ladies with his words. Finally, he could vent his feelings in another way, and it was a relief for him. Although he still could not hum or cry out, he could vent it with a frown and a twist of his body. "Emmy, can't you be faster?" Yunyang gritted his teeth and urged it through his deific consciousness. It was too uncomfortable. His demeanor and image were for outsiders and his wife. He could not care less now. Emmy was one of his own, the person closest to him. Aya? Amy expressed its sincere dissatisfaction with Yun Yang's current situation. You came back with such a body full of fire poison and now you're blaming me? What Yun Yang did not expect was that there was another third party who suddenly intervened at this point in time. In the deific consciousness space, Gigi, who had not been seen for a long time, expressed its displeasure. This little fellow was very aggressive, so it was naturally displeased that Yun Yang did not let it out for the battle. Rushing to Yun Yang, he mumbled incessantly. Chirp chirp, chirp chirp. It spread its tiny wings and flapped. Although it had a few more feathers, it was still ugly. It did not look good at all, so what was it fluttering about? You. Yun Yang was filled with disdain and suspicion, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Gigi. Gigi raised its head proudly and called out. Its posture was insufferably arrogant. Can you do it? Chirp chirp. Hearing this, Yun Yang was stunned. At this moment he had even forgotten the incessant itch on his body. What did Gigi say just now? It said it could deal with the fire poison? Was it possible? If what it said was true, could it deal with the nirvanic flame? Yun Yang picked Gigi up and looked at the little thing that was the size of a chick in his palm. He studied it closely and asked, What are you actually? You look inconspicuous, but you're so arrogant. Gigi was displeased. Chirp chirp, chirp chirp. All right, I'll bring you along next time. Yun Yang had almost forgotten that he had this fearless yet inconspicuous divine beast in his space. Well, let's just treat it as a divine beast then. At this point in the battle atmosphere, the Whiteys were still of little help despite their improvement. Yun Yang had long given up on the idea of bringing them into battle. If they were to encounter an expert like the Phoenix Emperor, the Whiteys would turn into thin air with a single nirvanic flame. Yun Yang would die of heartache if that happened. The entire night went by. Yun Yang clenched his teeth and endured the pain, circulating the endless divine art over and over again. Every part of his body that had pores was sweating profusely. It was not until daybreak that the fiery poison that was like maggots in his bones was completely removed. When the poison was removed and he felt his body regain its lightness, Yun Yang could not help feeling like he had just survived a disaster. Although he had felt the same feeling when the Phoenix Emperor had pursued him for the first time, it had never felt as dangerous as it was now. Judging from this, the Phoenix Emperor who had pursued him earlier should be a clone and not the real body. In other words, the demon race's sovereigns who had appeared outside earlier were all clones. Their abilities were incomplete. As for their real bodies, they basically did not come out. Take the 9 Lives Cat Emperor for example. When Yun Yang first met it, its ability was only at the beginner level of a saint and was about to drop out of the saint level. This was due to its rare improvement after so many years, and it was also because it was not its real body. This time, the Cat Emperor's ability was already at the intermediate level of a saint, close to the advanced level. The difference in their abilities was like heaven and earth, enough to prove the difference between the real body and clone, and also the terrifying combat power of the demon race's sovereigns when they descended. Now that the ultimate activation was the moment of the demon race's survival, it was reasonable for the sovereigns to fight in their true forms. Today's heavy injury further proved that the demon race's ultimate combat power was truly formidable. I thought I could look down on the world's heroes now that I've improved a lot. I didn't expect it to be impossible to defeat the Phoenix Emperor. Yin Yang sighed. With his current cultivation base, he was no match for the Phoenix Emperor. It was almost certain that he was no match for the Dragon Emperor, the top expert of the demon race. In that case, what about Emperor Rock? He should be on par with Emperor Rock. Although he still had trump cards that he hadn't used, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Emperor Rock with the Blade of Heavens unless he used the Purple Jade Flute. Furthermore, it was hard to say whether the Purple Jade Flute's power was suitable for top-notch saints. At least, after Jilingxi was injured for the first time, Yun Yang dared not believe in being invulnerable and unbreakable. Any seal or artifact had its limits. Instead of believing in external objects, it was more appropriate to believe in one's own ability. Right now, improving one's ability was the priority. Speaking of improving one's ability, his cultivation base should have surpassed Dongfang Haoran and the other rulers. Did that not mean, if an all-out war were to break out, the bound of universe would no longer be a match for the top-notch experts as long as the battlefield was drawn out? The ratio of their combat power would be severely skewed. As for the demon race, it was obvious that they had gone mad. They had even resorted to destroying the world. If they were given a chance, the ultimate battle between the two races would definitely be set in stone. However, the bound of universe was no match at all. Yun Yang, who was worried about the unfavorable situation of the war, racked his brain to come up with a strategy against the enemy and a way to improve in a short period of time. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. He recalled the gift from his sworn brother, the first of Abyss. He hadn't even opened that spatial ring yet. Yun-Yang perked up and held the spatial ring that looked darker than the night in his hand. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor who were guarding Yun-Yang outside were like ants on a hot pan. They were restless and anxious. There was no other reason than the shocking news that Yun-Yang had brought back had almost broken the two sovereigns. For half a day and night, the two sovereigns sat facing each other but did not say a word. Their extremely grim expressions spoke of the burden in their hearts. 10 billion lives, two sovereigns. The impact of these words on the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor was unprecedented, suffocating them. They all knew what that meant. They knew it very well. They knew it very well. It was the strategy of annihilation. As for the so-called world annihilation stratagem, it was still far from being perfect. It was far from complete. The strategy of annihilation had never only involved the demon race's calamity, but the entire bound of universe's calamity. Annihilation of the world was not just a joke. 10 billion lives as a sacrifice for sovereigns as a guide, to turn the world upside down, to destroy this filthy world. Seeing that the night had passed quietly, the Fox Emperor finally sighed softly and murmured the words, his tone extremely bleak. Cat Ancestor was also staring at the void in front of him in a daze. In fact, his eyes had long lost their focus. Seemingly intentionally or unintentionally, he said casually, "This deranged ultimate plan has finally been activated." "How is Yun-Yang?" The Fox Emperor stood up weakly and said, "Now that things have come to this, no matter how unwilling we are to work with the human race, no matter how unwilling we are to be the demon race's traitors, it's no longer up to us." Heard that there was double? Recommendation votes. Chapter 1469. Yes. At this point, both our clans are destined to be sacrificed. It's irreversible. The Cat Ancestor's smile looked like he was about to cry. That's the strategy of annihilation. The strategy of annihilation. Why did the other brothers agree to this plan? The Fox Emperor chuckled bitterly. There's nothing strange about this. Every demon has their own standpoint, their own bottom line. As long as we're sacrificed, their clans can be protected. I think they've been planning this for a long, long time before this plan even started. Those who should move and those who should migrate have already moved. He murmured, "That's right. So many clans have started to move. I thought it was just to make way for the Sea Clan. I didn't expect there to be such a crazy plan behind it. This plan has been laid out for at least a decade?" The Fox Emperor chuckled coldly. "I'll boast that I'm the Demon Clan's sage, that I've calculated everything, but I didn't even receive a hint of it. Pathetic, laughable, and shameful." The Cat Ancestor and the Fox Emperor exchanged a look, chuckling silently. Brother Fox, when the rumors about the Crown Prince came out, coupled with the geographical location of the Fox clan, they were already destined to be sacrificed. The Cat Ancestor said, "As for me, I have nothing to say about what happened back then." The Fox Emperor snorted. 10 billion lives, it's not just the Sea Clans. At least another 10 billion lives have to perish under this massacre of annihilation to accumulate the chi of blood. The Sea Clan has sacrificed 10 billion lives, where will the other 10 billion come from? The Cat Ancestor smirked, his expression growing increasingly grim. "Your Majesty, the water outside the city is growing again. It's growing faster this time. Some of the volcanoes on the outskirts are starting to smoke and erupt." At this moment, a Fox clan guard came to report. "It has begun." The two sovereigns heaved a long sigh. The bad news was just the beginning. The Fox and Cat races were still in the ascendant. Was this the beginning of the fall of the Fox and Cat races? Yun-Yang took out his spatial ring. After some thought, he did not open it immediately. Instead, he called Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu in. Both girls were still blushing. Shangguan Lingxiu did not even dare to look at Yun-Yang. Ji Lingxi, on the other hand, glared angrily and roared, "What are you doing?" Yun-Yang stroked his chin and said, "Lingxi, I saw that you were injured by the Phoenix Emperor. Are you all right?" Ji Lingxi retorted, "What? Do you only remember me now?" Yun-Yang was a little lost in his thoughts as he said, "Do you know, the moment I saw you hurt, I was so happy that I almost jumped up." The two girls were dumbfounded. Neither of them would have thought that Yun-Yang would actually say such a thing. It was utterly heartless. Ji Lingxi felt a sudden urge to kill. "Did you hear that? Is this something a human would say? I, your wife, suffered a heavy blow from a top-notch expert in this world. I was almost killed and you said you were so happy that you almost jumped up? Do you want to die? You can say it directly if you do. You don't have to be so infuriating, just say it. Yun Yang continued to speak slowly. This is the truth. As long as my cultivation base increases a little more, I can break through your automatic defense. In other words, as he spoke, a certain someone wore a very wretched, despicable, annoying, and infuriating grin. He propped his chin and looked at Ji Lingxi lustfully, his eyes darting around, his imagination running wild. Ahaha! Ji Lingxi was enraged. Her face flushed red like a red rag as she bared her teeth and said, You're still too young. Just based on your cultivation base, train for another 100 years or so. Yun Yang chuckled. 100 years or so. I'm actually not in a hurry. I still have Sister Lingxiu after all. It's a pity that someone can't wait any longer. Shengguan Lingxiu, who was innocently implicated, followed in Ji Lingxi's footsteps. Her face flushed as she stood up awkwardly and said angrily, Both of you, why did you drag me into this? Are you bullying me because I can't beat you now? Ji Lingxi, who was equally flustered, turned into a furious one. She pouted and said, I'm not looking for you, I don't care for you, As she spoke, she suddenly remembered that she could have had Yun Yang all to herself. It was because of this damn protective white light that she had wasted so much time and so many opportunities. In the end, she even had a sister. Not only did she not have Yun Yang all to herself, but she could even get the first prize. The first prize was actually given away by her own hands. It was a blessing. Even now, she did not know how long it would take to break this shackle. Just thinking of watching Yun Yang sneak into Shengguan Lingxiu's room every day, the feeling. Her eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. She sobbed without warning, My life is so hard. Wah! Then he burst into tears. Shengguan Lingxiu hurried forward to comfort her as she glared at Yun Yang, her brows furrowed and her eyes widened. Yun Yang was flustered as he said, Oh, why are you crying? You can't blame me, I don't want to be like this, but I have no choice. Mind your own business, mind your own business, mind your own business. Ji Lingxi could only cry. Yun Yang rolled his eyes and said, I called you in because I suddenly remembered something. I've unexpectedly gained a sworn brother during this trip to the Supreme Heaven Pavilion. He gave me something, saying that it's a gift for my sister-in-law. I haven't seen it yet. Ji Lingxi snorted angrily. Trying to divert my attention with a mere gift? Don't you know that I'm sad now? Wishful thinking. Shengguan Lingxiu said, We don't care for any gifts. What she said was true. The two girls really did not care for anything. One must know that given the wealth and strength of these two girls right now, anything and everything in the entire Shenhuang world could be obtained with the flip of a hand. How could there possibly be any gifts that could catch their eye? Yun Yang took out the black spatial ring and murmured, Are you sure you don't want it? I feel that this big brother of mine is quite generous. After all, they were the masters of the universe and he was the one who had suggested to become sworn brothers. It would be embarrassing for him to bring out something that was not good. When he opened it as expected, the first thing that came into view were two swords. The two swords looked like they were covered in ink, devoid of any luster. It was only their delicate design that made it obvious that they were gifts for women. It was obvious that they were prepared for Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu. He knows my situation like the back of his hand indeed, but these two swords don't stand out no matter how I look at them. Yun Yang mumbled in his heart and took the two swords in his hands. However, the moment he held them in his hands, something strange happened. These two swords seemed to be completely black and unremarkable. However, when held in one's hand with just a twirl, a rainbow of colors could be seen. Moreover, the colors were not directed at oneself or the enemy. If one was fighting against an enemy, it was inevitable that the enemy would be disturbed by the colors and be dazzled by the dazzling colors. It was inevitable that one's eyes would be dazzled. As the black swords shone brilliantly, they were even more elegant in their design. They were perfect and flawless. Yun Yang, who held the swords in his hands, had a deeper understanding. The two swords felt like they were nothing in his hands, like they were a part of his arms. Yun Yang waved them casually without injecting any mystical qi into them, but where the blades passed, a tear in the air had already appeared. The two girls were overjoyed, no longer caring about what they had just said. Each of them took a sword and snatched it over, waving it around as they experimented. With a gentle push of mystical qi, a ray of sword light shot out in a majestic manner. There seems to be a sword soul waiting to be awakened. Ji Lingxi exclaimed, This is a spiritual sword with a complete soul. This is... Such a marvelous weapon can increase my combat power by at least 30%, at least 30%. Shengguan Lingxiu knew what was good and what was not. A divine weapon like this was one of a kind in the entire bound of universe. Even the elite divine weapons that Yunyang had produced could not compare to it. Yunyang understood at a glance. His sworn brother was not just generous. These two swords, even in the starry sky world, should be above the standard of E grade. The lethality shown by the two women's casual movements was extremely powerful. Emmy's refined weapons aside, even his divine will blade. His divine will blade was definitely superior. After all, his divine will blade had grown along with him. The divine will blade would grow to the same level as him, a dreamy item that was always in sync with him. In spite of this, these two swords must also belong to the ultimate elite level. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu could not bear to let go of the two swords, already discussing how to familiarize themselves with them. Yunyang continued to examine the ring. Other than the two swords, there were two other pieces of clothing in the ink-colored ring, 2 long dresses and 2 singlets. There was a description attached to these 2 sets of clothing: impenetrable by weapons, impervious to water and fire, untainted by a speck of dust, immune to all harm below the level of the starry sky. Yunyang's eyes shone when he was done reading. He quickly took out the clothes for the 2 girls to change into. After the girls put them on, they realized that these 2 sets of clothing had a self-identifying ability. They could retract themselves according to their body shape, ensuring that the image they presented to others was the best. What's more, the clothes actually had a spirit attached to them. In other words, the clothes needed to recognize an owner. This was rather insane. Emmy had collected countless rare metals and refined their essences to forge many divine weapons. It was not surprising that they contained spiritual consciousness, but it was only limited to the weapons. There was no other item other than the weapons. Whether it was clothes, shoes, hats, or armor, there was none. Even the purple robe that Yunyang usually wore was just an ordinary item with a slightly better quality. With these 2 sets of clothing from 9 Abyss No. 1, Yunyang was immediately outshone. Ji Lingxi frowned as if recalling something. She exclaimed, "The material of these clothes is obviously the silk of starlight. Gosh, starlight silk is extremely rare." It said that a piece of clothing can be impenetrable by weapons and magic as long as there are a few horizontal threads woven into it. It also has the ability to change its color according to the surrounding light. These 2 sets of clothing are actually made of starlight silk from top to bottom. There's not a single foreign material mixed in. This can no longer be described as extravagant. This is extravagant to the point of squandering. Shengguan Lingxiu said in surprise, "Lingxi, you really don't show your true colors. You actually know the origin of these clothes." "I didn't." Shengguan Lingxiu had once learned from Aunt Mei, so her knowledge was much higher than Yunyang's. However, it was strange that Ji Lingxi could recognize something that she did not know. Ji Lingxi blushed as she explained, "I don't know why either." This sworn brother of his was not only generous, but his calculations were also precise. Yunyang took out the fruit and explained it to Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu. The lady's eyes shone brighter than before. The 2 women were already high-level sages, so if they were to break through another 3 major levels, what level would they reach? The usage of this fruit is about progressing step by step with a buffer period. It's not like other spiritual medicines where you can ascend to heaven in a single bound. Only when the medicinal effect is digested bit by bit can the medicinal effect truly be assimilated and used by the user. Yunyang smiled and said, "If the medicinal effect were to explode after eating it, how powerful would it be? It would be a breakthrough of a realm. Even we might not be able to withstand it. Even if we could, we would inevitably lose a portion of the medicinal effect. According to the rules, we can eat one first and then eat the second 3 months later. I think our abilities will grow day by day within these 3 months, and our cultivation efficiency will be much higher than usual." Shengguan Lingxiu's eyes were sparkling. "That's what I think too." Yunyang chuckled. "I reckon that Lingxi's divine barrier won't be able to stop me after I consume these 3 fruits." "Ha!" Ji Lingxi blushed but pretended not to hear him. She was even a little expectant, thinking, "Should I not eat this fruit for now?" She picked up the fruit and studied it carefully without blinking. "This fruit is exquisite. What a marvelous creation." The more Ji Lingxi looked at it, the more she liked it. She was reluctant to eat it. It was hard to imagine that it was a fruit, a sun and a moon that were perfectly combined. Ji Lingxi focused her gaze and saw a wisp of red energy and a wisp of white energy flowing back and forth within the fruit's skin in a never-ending cycle. "This is a treasure of heaven and earth in the truest sense. No, it should be the spiritual fruit of the galaxy that transcends the laws of heaven and earth. Yun Yang sighed softly. Just like what he had said, this was a treasure of heaven and earth in the truest sense, a spiritual fruit of the galaxy that transcended the laws of heaven and earth. Even ordinary people could consume this fruit without having to worry about exploding from the medicinal effect. Consuming the fruit would only result in a rebirth and a longer lifespan. As long as one embarked on the path of cultivation, one would be a genius with a self-sufficient foundation. As the fruit's energy was absorbed bit by bit, it would gradually be unleashed. Yun Yang guessed that there would not be many such treasures of heaven and earth, even in the entire universe. Let's eat the first one, Yun Yang suggested. Both ladies' eyes shone as they expressed their agreement without a word. Putting the fruit into his mouth, he gently bit the skin, and an extremely fragrant and sweet taste seeped out. With a gentle breath, the pulp inside the fruit turned into fruit juice and flowed into his mouth in the most gentle way possible. Even when the entire fruit had been consumed, Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu still could not bear to throw the skin away, savoring the aftertaste with mesmerized eyes. It's so delicious. This is the first time I've eaten such a delicacy in my life. What if I don't get to eat it in the future? If only I could eat my fill, I wouldn't get sick of it even if I ate it every day, Yun Yang chortled. He also discovered that after eating the fruit, it didn't suddenly produce a powerful medicinal power like when he consumed heavenly treasures and spirit medicines in the past. Instead, he could feel a vast and boundless power quietly flowing into his meridians. After circulating through his meridians once, it disappeared. Then, his cultivation base began to strengthen bit by bit as he circulated his martial arts. It was a peculiar feeling that was different from the usual improvement in his cultivation. With each cycle of cultivation, there would be an additional powerful force that flowed in parallel with the force that he cultivated, coming from the same source. If he could increase a little bit of mystical chi with a cycle of cultivation before this, he could increase 10 or even more points of mystical chi with a cycle of cultivation now. Moreover, this kind of power would continue to exist. Ayya. In his deific consciousness space, Emmy was stirred, calling out and exchanging. Good stuff. Definitely good stuff. I want it. I want it. Yun Yang tossed the 3 fruit skins in. This one. A moment later. Ayya. Emmy's depressed and aggrieved voice rang again. The radiance of the sun and moon fruit was beyond its ability. It could not extract its vitality to cultivate it. Emmy that had always prided itself on its groundbreaking spiritual root, Emmy that was known to bow down to all plants was helpless for the first time, sighing helplessly. How could it not feel aggrieved? I'll make you a complete one next time. There's really nothing left this time, Yun Yang comforted it repeatedly. Emmy was still unwilling to give up, turning the 3 fruit skins over and over again. Yun Yang, the Fox Emperor and the others have been waiting for you the whole night. Shengguan Lingxiu reminded him. Are you? Yun Yang frowned and said, Big brother and second brother have deep feelings for the demon race. I don't know what decision they'll make. It won't be nice if we push them too hard. Let them suffer for a while longer. Ji Lingxi pursed her lips and said, Sister Lingxiu, just look at how bad this person is. He knows that others are waiting for him, yet he puts on airs. What a jerk. Shengguan Lingxiu sighed and said, This isn't putting on airs. He's really giving the 2 emperors time to think it through. Even though the Foxy Emperor and the Cat Ancestor have realized something now, they're still a part of the demonic race. This will never change. Yun Yang's identity and stance have always been speaking on behalf of the demonic race. If we take the initiative, both of them will inevitably feel like they're being used. Therefore, torturing them isn't to play tricks. It's to get along better in the future. Or rather, there won't be any emotional knots when we get along. Yun Yang praised her. Sister Lingxiu is right. It's indeed so. Torturing them now isn't to play tricks. It's because they care about our friendship that they'll think more and do more. If we don't care about each other, we won't have to worry so much. Ji Lingxiu mused and said, Do men need to think so much when they interact? Yun Yang smiled faintly. If we want to be brothers for a long time, we must think more for our brothers. If everyone were to act according to their own temperament, how could there be brothers in this world? There wouldn't even be friends. His words silenced Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu. As they thought about it, they felt that it made more sense. Feng Lingtian said, Big Zhang. Also, tomorrow is the 2nd of the 9th month. It's my birthday. How about giving me some monthly votes as a birthday present? This is my 11th birthday in Qidian. When I typed this, did you know that I felt like I was in a trance? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.